Hello there, you filthy perverts. How are we all? I am alive. Technically. How are we all? Apologies I was not around yesterday. Work and things. Poverty stalks me like a evil rabbit or something. I don't fucking know. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I was up to. It was fucking tedious. Okay, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't know why you felt the need to just send me pictures of Alex Jones. When that's clearly, Kieran, that's just pictures of Alex Jones, right? That's just Alex Jones. I don't see what's interesting about
Stop
this.
it. Get some help.
Maybe I should, Michael. Maybe I should. Thank you, Dolphin Floyd, for resubscribing. Much love. Yes. Best to get the silliness out of the way up front, I think. We've got company. We've got polite company, okay? So we need to be vaguely normal. Rory Katz was a fascist in his past 9 lives. Well, it depends on one's definition of fascist, I suppose. Clearly, he was also capable of absolutely amazing facial hair. I mean, quite literally, it covered his entire face. He did have fur everywhere. It was quite something. Why are you showing me? Oh, the post-birth baby Bible abortion, of course. Of fecking course. Much love to you. Enjoy me slapping these babies. And don't forget you can give me money in those various ways as well. Much love. Let's talk to a real person though, shall we? I think that's fair. Hello there, No Justice, MT and G.
How are you doing? You're right. Someone in my chat who is clearly below the age of 35 has discovered the existence of the George Galloway cat clip.
Oh, there are people who don't even know that's a thing. Oh, God bless them. Yeah. Do they also know about the Saddam Hussein bit that he did, where he literally
And
went
quite
to
frankly,
Iraq?
the less embarrassing of the two.
And the thing that should be less illegal, but isn't. Yeah. I mean, technically, neither of them were illegal, but you get the idea. Yeah, that's. I feel so old. So very, every time something like this happens, you're just like, oh God, how do you not know about this thing? Firstly,
Realise that
congratulations,
yeah,
but you know, but
exactly.
and enjoy. But secondly, yeah, shall I be the cat? Oh God. Oh, ruler, what are you doing? Anyway,
She was just being a good sport.
I suppose so, but I mean, also, like, it's okay. I'm just going to put this out there. Seeing a 60-year-old woman pussy teasing is weird.
True, true.
Nothing wrong with it. Look, old people fuck too, but like, we don't need it on national TV. Is what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, especially not with George Galloway.
Especially not with George Galloway, who is, not to put too fine a point on it, a massive cunt. Yeah,
Bit of a weirdo.
he's not a good man in a number of ways. He wasn't then, and he's especially not now. Now he's gone down this weird. I don't even know how to describe him now. Like it's a weird mixture of like tanky and SDP or something.
He is basically, yeah, yeah. It is a weird mix, isn't it?
Yeah, he's an odd guy. Like he's always been one of those guys where you could listen to him talk, and like 90% of the time you're like, yeah, right on, and then 10% of the time he has you literally like in a creased over in pain at how fucking stupid the thing he just said was. Like he's a very odd chap. But you know that's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get on to Laura Koonsberg, do you have a take on the whole Alison Pearson thing? Because everyone else seems to be talking about it. I can give a shit, of course, but it's probably something that we should talk about because it's all over the internet. Do you have opinions?
Not very strong ones. I'm not entirely sure. Just on a kind of broad philosophical front, I'm not entirely sure why you have non-crime related hate incidents. What the fuck is that? Why are the police dealing with non-crime related anything?
I think the non-crime hate incidents, right? I disagree with their existence. I'm going to put it out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I disagree with their existence, but the rationale for them, I understand why. So it's if you have a file of things that aren't illegal but shows a pattern of behaviour, it means that people can't do the plausible deniability when they actually engage in a hate crime, right? So if you can have the list of patterns of behaviour that suggest that this person might be hateful but in a non-criminal way, it means you're able to at least have a pattern of behavior that allows you in future, if they do commit something that is hate crime adjacent, right? Because of course it being a hate crime rather than just a crime normally is of course understanding based upon intention, right?
Yeah.
It's about there's a level to which these people are doing things with a certain motivation behind them, and you can't really tweeze that out from a single incident. Whereas if you can go, well, this person did this crime and there was this pattern of behavior of non-crime hate incidents against the same demographic group, therefore this crime they've done is actually hate. The intention is hateful. The motivation for the crime they've done is hateful, which is based upon the previous behavior. Now, I understand that rationale. I still think that non-crime hate incidents are a terrible idea.
Yeah, no, I just think they're fundamentally shit as a concept, to be honest with you. I think she is a hateful piece of garbage. I think accusing people of being Jew haters was one of the things she did is fucked up and wrong. I suppose we should explain for Americans or whoever. Alison Pearson is a British quote-unquote journalist who was visited over the weekend or the week, I suppose, by the police over some things she tweeted out, which were, I mean, at best potentially libelous. I think actually. About a few people, and yeah, she's just a hateful, bigoted piece of shite. I don't know that what she's done necessarily rises to the level of crime, and therefore I'm not entirely sure why the police needed to get involved. And it just plays, unfortunately, into the hands of these dickheads who go on about two-tier policing, you can't say anything anymore. If you say you're English, they lock you up. All this fucking garbage, right? Don't play into that. Don't play into that thing. Like, there are plenty of instances where you can go after them for their fucking hate, because they do it all the fucking time. But this probably wasn't one of them. I think actually a very much better example would be something like Lawrence Fox this weekend, essentially threatening to take physical force against people who disagree with him. And I think they dropped out, but are they back now?
I'm here. Sorry.
I just made the best point ever, and you will never hear it unless you watch my VOD back, I guess. In which case you'll find out I was lying and making a pretty basic point, to be honest. No, I was just saying that a better example would be going after someone like Lawrence Fox, who's repeatedly engaged in hateful, bigoted shit, and of course now is strained into the I want to do violence against my political opponents territory. I think the police really ought to deal with scum like that first and foremost, to be honest. But
Definitely, absolutely, I agree. The thing with the Alison Pearson stuff, right? I think you're right in that surely the onus on this is for the people who are in the photo in question to launch a defamation case against her, right?
yeah,
Because she said something that they would perceive to be untrue, and she said it to a large audience on the internet. That would seem to be like a civil action being taken against her specifically, right? If she's tweeting out, if she's literally saying this person is a Jew hater, I don't think they would get very far in civil court for this. But that's what seems to me to be more likely of the two, because I'm assuming, if again, these are all my assumptions. I've not looked at any articles. I did bookmark something so I could have a look at it. My assumption is that it would come under the Malicious Communications Act.
yeah. I think it undoubtedly would have to be, if it did rise to illegality. Yeah.
That seems like. I think the Malicious Communications Act is bonkers. I think it's genuinely bonkers, the kind of things you can get pulled up for under the Malicious Communications Act, right? Like, it should be if you're using it to threaten.
Yeah.
Or in my mind, it should be if you're using it to threaten, if you're using it to be able to incite things upon to people. I mean, maybe you could say calling someone a Jew hater is potentially incitement, but when was the last time somebody who was accused of anti-Semitism actually got attacked, right? It's not very often, is it? I don't think you can really make those connections. But
No.
I mean, just bring up this BBC article here. BBC News. Essex police has defended their actions after the Daily Telegraph columnist was left dumbstruck by a visit at home. Blah, blah, blah. An investigation into alleged incitement to racial hatred. In an article, she said she was told by the police it was a non-crimeous incident, but the police force says that it wasn't, and actually was about a criminal offence about incitement to racial hatred. To suggest otherwise is wholly inaccurate and misleading, the police say. As the public was expect, we have body-worn video of this interaction with entirely supports our position in this respect.
A journalist from the Telegraph being wholly untruthful. That is news to me. I would never have expected this. My gas could not be more flabbered, frankly.
It's a real shocker.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Essex police said, quote, at no stage was she informed that the report being investigated was treated as a non-crime hate incident, to suggest other. Yeah, you already read that one out, sorry. As the public would expect, we have body-worn video of the interaction, which entirely supports our position in this respect. They should really release that footage, I think. Also, you can tell that no violence was perpetrated against an ethnic minority because they still had the body cameras on. So, the technical glitches that happen when they commit crimes, the police are very lucky in that respect, aren't they? So all these fucking gullible twats have retweeted them.
More on Arkabuy makes a good point. Apparently, in Section 127 of the Communications Act, of the Malicious Communications Act. Apparently, it's illegal to knowingly lie on the internet. So you can get, so it's not just definition that you could be eligible. I mean, potentially, but there's potential that you would have fallen foul of the Malicious Communications Act by knowingly lying.
Yes. I think possibly my favourite of her victim playing things was the one where she hooked in Elon Musk to literally try and get Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, to, like, I don't know, put pressure on the British government to, like, back off or something. Very, very strange, shitty cult-like behaviour they've got going on there.
Yeah, so this is an archive of the original tweet here, which is her saying, "How dare they, at Met Police UK, invited to pose for a photo with lovely, peaceful British friends of Israel on Saturday, police refused. Look at this lot smiling with the Jew haters." And it's a picture of two people holding the PTI Pakistani flag at a pro-Imran Khan protest in August 2023. There is no apparent relation to Palestine, Israel, or Hamas, and this is in the community note underneath, right? So there's an archive of the original tweet there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I mean, I genuinely think they might have a case under defamation law to suggest that somebody is a Jew hater based on just having a Pakistani flag. That seems a bit, yeah. I think they've got a case for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a legal expert. I cannot make any comment on this.
I am a legal expert, and I can say this.
I mean, this Sky News article says the Essex police are claiming that it is about an alleged criminal offence, specifically. I don't know if it's Communications Act or something else. Oh, inciting racial hatred is the actual offence. Sorry.
Also, if there's literal video evidence that they at no point said non-crime related hate incident, and she claimed that, isn't that? I don't know. I mean, there's got to be
I don't think it's plausibly deniable that she could have assumed that it was there rather than, I don't know.
Well, don't assume and then state as fact, because that seems like some genuinely fucked up shit.
She's making an ass out of you and me.
True. Yeah, she's garbage. And on a similar-ish, I suppose, free speechy type note, there's a certain Z word that we can't use anymore here on the Twitches.
By the Essex Police have complained to Ipso because the Telegraph have been falsely reporting the ongoing investigation. That's wild.
That is pretty wild. We'll see how they get on with that. Yeah, so we can't use the Z word to describe people who describe themselves using the Z word.
You should call them anti-Palestinian. That's what I'm gonna do.
Well, I've gone with genocidal freaks.
Also works.
Yeah. And it's so annoying because
colonizers.
There's loads of fantastic Jewish people who are not genocidal freaks, and most genocidal freaks are not Jewish. But we can't call them by that word, so they're now just genocidal freaks.
Yeah.
Because Ethan Klein's butt blasted about something. Brilliant. Well done. It comes a point where your personal interactions with Bad Empanada make Bad Empanada look like the sane one. You need to back the fuck out. You need to go and touch every blade of grass on the planet and go and live your life. You've earned enough money to retire. I would suggest you do that. Anyway, so that's that. Yeah, that's fun. Wonderful stuff.
So just reading through the article again. So the investigation is being carried out under Section 17 of the Public Order Act, with regards to Alison Pearson here.
Maria End. Hang on. Zionist encouraging Alison was literally the example of acceptable language. What are you screaming about, Maria? If you do, I mean, I could just read back all of your comments. I won't. You could just summarise it for me, please. Hello there, first time chatterino. You should hit the follow button, assuming you're into this. If you're not, don't bother, I guess. I'm not going to give you the big sell. It's not like my content's fucking amazing. But you should go and follow No Justice MTG, whose content is amazing. Fact. Oh yeah, I saw that Emma Vigeland was interviewed on Navarra as well this week. Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I, I was just commenting on the fact that Emma Vigeland was interviewed on Navarra.
That's cool. Sorry, the thing where it keeps automatically lowering the volume on my microphone's fucking happening again on Google Meets, and I'm trying to see what's. I have an extension that's supposed to stop them from doing it, and I'm trying to get it to work. I'm not sure why it's not.
Can we use zebras instead? I mean, we could use zebras instead, but I don't want to besmirch the wonderful striped animal of the savannah. And secondly, Americans pronounce it zebra, and that is deeply frustrating and irritating to me. And I don't want to hear people described as zebra. So,
Okay.
yeah. Are you okay? Yellow. The updated TOS literally says you can say Z word. I'm saying Z word right now, for fuck's sake. Okay. Okay.
Is Zedwood like it's like the evil version of Jedward?
Yeah, it's the Jedward's Wario. Yes. So to speak.
Textbook.
Which is that I suppose their Wario would be, they started off based and then became annoying cunts who made shit music. Because it's the other way around. Because they're surprisingly cool now. Well, as they cool, they're still annoying bastards, but like, their politics are a lot better. Can we use fucker? I suppose so.
Mutant?
Mutant also works, yeah. What about Zeppelins? Okay, but people will think you're talking about the band or something. And I don't know about Robert Plant's particular opinions on the matter. I think it's just generally a good idea not to use the Z word at all because we don't have to have an argument. Well, no, it's annoying because obviously a lot of people who are the Z word describe themselves rather fondly as that. And it's very... Actually, I find it enormously anti-Semitic to suggest that there is a direct correlation between like a person saying this person is a Z word and you thinking, well, that must mean they mean Jewish. No, it fucking doesn't. When I describe Joe Biden as a Z word, that's because A, he's described himself that way, and B, his policies align with other Z words. He's a Catholic.
Well, I'm going to restart Chrome 1 second to try and see if I've managed to fix this microphone thing. 1 second.
Go for it. Yeah, most Z words, or Z words if you're American, I guess, are evangelical Protestant Christians. That's just a fact.
Right, let me see. I'm just going to load up my microphone. 1 second.
Yeah, that's not non-binary. I think you sum up my issue here really well. I'm gonna, for the time being, use Z word or some variant of that phrase, but without actually saying it, until I find out how pathetically they're gonna moderate this new thing. Because, like, in theory, there are safeguards there, which means you can legitimately describe things that are the Z word as the Z word, and they won't say blah 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 blah. But they've already caved to the advertisers. Or at least caved to the advertisers caving to the fucking weirdo Destiny bull lickers, right? Who have caused this entire fucking problem. So I'll wait and see how Twitch actually moderate these new rules before deciding if I can even continue using this fucking platform, frankly. Because if I can't describe a genocide because we wouldn't want to hurt the feelings of the genociders, then I'm just gonna go to YouTube. Fuck this, you know. If Asmongold can literally get away with saying that certain groups of people are worthy of being murdered and get a 2-week ban, and like, if I cop it for just describing someone as the Z word or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it's over. This fucking website's cooked. Are we well?
Right, so does this I'm just gonna check my microphone volume. It's not changing now that I've changed my settings in Google Chrome. Seeing this is now working. Properties, levels. Yes, it's finally not changing my microphone volume, so that it will be the right microphone rather than the wrong microphone, rather than a weirdo microphone. And it's now not going to randomly change the volume for no fucking reason. So we should be good to go.
Awesome. Okay, shall we move on then to main proceedings? Because we have tiny Queen related business to attend to.
We do. We do have the immortal science of Marxism-Denialism to study.
Well, exactly. Yes, so. Along with presumably a series of melters, because obviously.
The rest, I guess, is Dominic fucking Raab on today.
Why do they keep bringing these fucking losers in? Fuck off. You're not a thing anymore. Go away.
Maybe he can apologise for being on his sun lounger when fucking the Afghanistan shit was going down.
I suspect he won't.
Or it won't be really brought up.
Yeah,
Also, my favourite, it doesn't even, it pales into comparison actually. It pales in comparison actually to my favourite Dominic Raab moment, which is during the 2017 election. Channel 4 were doing like a panel to discuss issues, and there was a disabled person talking about how like disabled people were killing themselves because they didn't have like enough care from the NHS to be able to have a satisfactory standard of life. And Dominic Raab's genuine response was, well, unfortunately, we don't have the money to just give everybody anything, any kind of dream, or what was the word he used? Like he said something like fantasy or something. He genuinely was one of the most risible human beings I've heard in my fucking life. I need to find that clip because I remember the thing he said was, it made it sound like it was a ridiculous assertion for disabled people to have, basic standards of living.
Well, the Tories do believe that. That has literally been state policy for the thick end of 20 years now.
Getting things done in government. How we care for the elderly and vulnerable. How to keep...
Oh, there you see Jake Paul's next victim there. He's going to go and fight that person, apparently. Oh, God, that was a nightmare. That was just elder abuse. But it was elder abuse of a rapist, so, whatever.
Keep the country moving. And how should the government treat farmers in the countryside?
With a stick. Beat them with a stick in Minecraft.
None of this is easy. Well, this...
I don't know about you, but this seems a little bit public nuisance-y.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a... It sounds very shades of public nuisance.
Like... I can't help but feel that the very same people who were celebrating the Just Stop Oil people getting 4 years for planning to do this should really be out there. I'm furious at this public nuisance, but apparently, it's fine when we do it. Cool. Very consistent. Awesome.
Well, what's frustrating to me is that I think, they're well within their rights. They're absolutely well within their rights to protest and exercise their democratic right to protest in a free society, right? Just as Just a Poiler, I just wish there was literally anybody on the right at all who held that same principle. They don't exist.
No, they don't exist. That's the problem, yeah. I'm fine with Just Stop Oil doing it. I'm fine with the farmers doing it, although I disagree with their cause, because it's largely rich wankers, but whatever. They're certainly entitled to do it, right? But yeah, the right, there's no fucking consistency. Again, it's always like some double standard fucking bullshit with the right. It's always every accusation being a confession, right? They were never against cancel culture. It's just they wanted to do the cancelling. They wanted to send people to prison for things that they disagree with. It's fine. Fuck your feelings, but my feelings need to be protected like a fucking Ming vase. Like, it's ridiculous.
It goes back... Yeah, exactly. It goes back to the quote that has to come up a lot, which is that the basis of all conservatism is the idea that the law should have in-groups that it protects but does not bind, and out-groups which the law binds but does not protect. And that is the essential tenet of all conservatism.
True. Literally true. Have the farmers condemned Hamas yet? No, they have not. Which must mean that they're Hamas. That's how it works. That's the mathematics on it.
This Sunday morning, we're joined for the first time by the Transport Secretary Louise Haigh.
No pronouns
and by
in
the leader of
bio.
the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey. And
I tell you,
we'll
do you,
speak to
you'll
Chris-
absolutely made me fucking lose my mind, Kevin. So Lou Haig was on the Sky News program because they just fucking send the same cabinet minister out.
Yeah.
They go from studio to studio each Sunday morning, right? Fucking Lou Haig was asked about the £3 bus cap and like, do you have any plans to extend it past when it's going to go out next year? And she was like, no, we don't. But we're looking at ways of better targeting it at certain young people. So it's just old people. I'm just like, stop fucking means testing everything. What is this with these people and their means testing fetish, for the love of God?
Yeah, in order to get on the bus, you're now going to have to fill out a 27-page form. That's just how it's going to work.
God. Just make it universal. Why? Why do these people hate universalism so much? It makes me so mad.
Because they're mealy-mouthed little pricks who are basically bought into the conservative framing of everything. Everything.
Yes. Also, I found the Dominic Raab bit from the big debate in 2017, right? And there's this person saying that they had to resettle disabled people in Scotland because at least the Scottish government used what few funds they have to try and ensure disabled people don't die, but they are being neglected in England. That's literally what they were saying. They literally had to move from fucking one part of the country to the other to not fucking die. And so the university departments, it also kills people. I have friends who are institutionalized after going through it. It is an act of violence. We are dying, and this election is life or death for us. And for anybody to vote for the Conservative Party who are going to further these cuts, that are going to keep on with these cuts, they're complicit in those deaths. That's what she says. Let me find out what the let me find the actual quote.
Yeah, the government they are trying to fin-dom us a little bit, yeah. Don't forget, if you're enjoying the content, everybody, you can give us money in the form of bits and memberships and subs and super chats and things like that on both of the platforms. You can do these things. I believe in you, chat.
Oh, this is the genuine phrase, right? So it's very easy for me to give lots of things that I would do and lots of things I would like to avoid making difficult decisions on lots of areas like the health service or schools, and I want to put even more money in. But unless you've got a strong economy creating the revenue, it's just a childish wish, this $20 bet to give the balance right between responsible public finances and literally called it a childish wish. A childish wish for disabled people to not have to leave the country for being too scared they would fucking die from the cut.
It's student politics to not just like kill disabled people. That's what it is. It's literally it's student politics to not mince disabled people up and put them into kebabs. Fact. Dominic Raab is ontologically evil.
Absolutely. It's genuinely crazy. What the response was, I think, from the woman who said there, if you choose to sacrifice tens of thousands of disabled people for the sake of the single richest country on one of the single, what did she say here? Sorry, the transcript is bad here. One of the richest countries in the world. It's a choice people make in Scotland. We have a limited block grant. They still managed to create a health service which functions. Yeah, very good point.
Yeah.
I garbled that mess because I was all reading from transcripts. But basically, Dominic Raab should go and play Roblox.
He should indeed, yeah. If you're literally fueling the red line going up with the bodies of disabled people and poor people, I have nothing but the most intense contempt for you, and the things that I want to say about you are definitely TOS, like incredibly legally TOS. So I'll just leave it there. But yeah, go fuck yourself, mate.
Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, later too.
Could he look any more like a fucking spiv? Like, I don't trust this creature at all. I wouldn't buy a fucking banana from him. It's just,
let alone a used car.
Yeah, look at him. Could he look less honest? Is it possible? Oh my god!
He does, honestly, he looks very untrustworthy.
This man has got. All I'm going to say is, right, this man has definitely got a freezer with bits of human in it. Fact. He is collecting organs for his own purposes. I don't know what he's up to, but
No, mouth
Thousands
organs.
of-
That's what it's got. It's got mouth organs. Nothing untoward about that.
no, it's perfectly normal.
People in
Perfect.
Kyiv have spent the night in shelters after one of the worst nights of Russian strikes in months. 120 missiles and 90 drones.
Oh God, Zelensky, God bless him. He has to do the diplomatic thing, and so he was talking about like Donald Trump coming in, and the best way he could try and spin the obvious fact that Trump's about to sell him and his country down the river was, under Donald Trump, the war is more likely to end sooner.
I mean, he's not wrong.
He's not incorrect about that. No. When he sells you out and lets people just march in to Kiev tomorrow or something, I don't know. Yeah, it will end. He has to play the game though, like, because I mean, ultimately, America has the the tap, and they could turn it off at any moment, right?
Still very
drones
depressing,
have
isn't
been
it?
launched.
It's enormously depressing because I mean, what at this point, what can the Biden even do really? Like, you basically tell him you've got till January. You might as well throw everything you've got at him now because after January you're fucked, lad.
You've seen today that Putin they launched like a huge drone and missile attack against the energy infrastructure, and it's just like, yeah, Putin knows it's fucking over now that Trump's won the election.
Oh yeah, no, he's laughing his bollocks off. Yeah.
Across Ukraine. We'll hear about the terrible impact on the environment of the conflict.
No, that's what I mean, Maria. Yeah, Biden's just allowed them to launch missiles longer into Russia and all of this, which is like an escalation, but it's sort of too late now. Really? Much like Biden's, pulling out of the race. The damage has already been done. You're too late on this, and Biden will be remembered as a fucking dickhead. In so many ways. Also, his 30-day thing elapsed with Israel, and the massive sanctions they're now going to pull on Israel is literally nothing. Why did you give them 30 days, and what did that mean? What were you planning to do after 30 days?
Literally, they are exactly the same, right, as Hans Blix in Team America.
Yeah, we will write you a well, no, because at least he was going to write a strongly worded letter telling you how annoyed he was. Biden hasn't even done that. He's just gone, I'm not actually going to do anything. So why did you say the 30-day thing then, you cunt? What?
Yeah, Hans Blix's patented McDonald's strategy.
True. Yes, you do have a bugbear about McDonald.
I love him. Honestly, he's one of my favourite politicians. But it's very funny just how often he'll write a letter or like a public letter about what's going on in the Labour Party, as if that will do literally anything whatsoever.
He likes writing.
They hate you. If they, John. Obviously we all love you, but if you died tomorrow, Keir Starmer and Morgan McSweeney would piss shit and cum on your grave.
Literally.
They would do that. That's how much they hate you, John. You spend your entire time trying to win the favour of these people, doggedly trying to try and bridge the divide and try and find some unity. And these people would shag your wife and then also throw your granny in the Thames. Yeah. If they could get away with it.
Yeah, and they probably could because they're the government now. So.
They would just be able to get away with it.
Morning, and welcome to my team at the table for the next hour. Dominic Raab, the former Conservative Foreign Secretary, Carla Denyer.
Honestly, I mean, look at him. He looks dead behind the eyes, and that's because he is. His soul escaped a long time ago.
If there's anyone, the problem is, of course, is that you'd think that if it was going to send like a T-1000 back in time, right, you'd make it someone who wasn't a bit weird looking,
Yeah, I always look at it this way. You can tell the lizards that have put effort into trying to look like a human, and you can tell the ones that haven't.
True.
Like, do not get your human suit off the peg, okay? You need that shit tailored. Just saying. Also, is she boosted, or is he actually that small?
I think it's just, if you're sitting down, it always gets a little bit
Yeah, but like we know how she is very small.
She is our tiny queen.
She is our microscopic queen. God bless her. And yeah, like he's about an inch taller apparently, which puts him in like genuinely Rashid Sunook territory. You know.
Co-leader of the Greens and now MP, taking your place in the House of Commons, and Tim Shipman, journalist and chronicler of the Conservatives' Brexit years. Now, let's start, as we always do, with what is making the news this morning. And it's a bit of a mixed bag today. The Mirror goes with the government's £1 billion boost.
Oh, that's Colleen. Okay. This okay. This is a safe place, right? That's Colleen Rooney. I just looked at the picture and I thought it was oh god, what name do they go by now? The one that was married to the Kardashians, whose name I don't know what they're called now. That person. Anyway, the former Olympian. Never mind.
Oh, Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah, I thought it was Caitlyn Jenner.
They probably both had similar amounts of work done.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, it's not. Yeah. It's not great. They both don't look at all like they used to. Put it that way.
True. A real Brianna Wu vibes.
Yes.
We'll hear about that from the Transport Secretary later. The Sunday Times claims that Labour is mulling over giving some countries extra money to slow the flow of migrants. The Mail on Sunday slams the number of British delegates that flew to the climate conference COP in Azerbaijan. And we had a flavour of it here last week. The Independent on Sunday leads on the most highfalutin job spat ever, the rivalry between William Hague and Peter Mandelson.
To quote the late Norm MacDonald, I think everyone in this story should die.
In the video game Minecraft.
In the video game Minecraft. Well, no, I'm just quoting somebody else saying it. I'm not suggesting that should happen. I'm saying Norm MacDonald might have said that about the people involved in this particular story.
Norm MacDonald, he may or may not have said that. Who knows? There's a direct quote from him that is completely irrelevant to the words on the screen currently.
Literally.
Become the next Chancellor of Oxford University. Something obviously making huge ructions at breakfast tables around the country. Tim, you've made a huge reputation by chronicling the sort of Tory civil wars, Brexit sagas. Your latest instalment of that is coming out this week. But when you look at this new government, do you think they're finding out it's harder than they thought?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, politics is very complicated, and if there's any lesson from writing thousands of pages about the last 8 years, it's that it's quite difficult, but you can't possibly succeed unless you have a goal and you know where you're going and you know how you're going to get there and you've got the ability to take people with you. And I think what Keir Starmer and some of his colleagues are discovering is that it's quite complicated. They came in with these big 5 missions. They set up boards of ministers to sort out all the big problems.
Can we acknowledge the fact that man just said literally nothing?
Literally,
he said it's difficult to do things in politics unless you do the things and know that you're doing things whilst doing things. Okay, brilliant.
It was absolute pablum, yes.
These people get paid fucking money, Jesus. Any money at all? Like, they just get paid money.
If you're middle/upper class and you have the correct opinions, you can steal a living in the media.
You really can.
Like, you don't have to actually really work. Just come up with absurd shit all the time and parrot the same talking points that, you know, the right-wing press always fucking do. That's all you've got to do. And you can skate by earning lots of money.
Problems, and you know, people who sit on them say they haven't yet devised really what the top 2 or 3 priorities are for each one. We've got through the budget. They need to spend the next couple of months working out what that is. Otherwise, this is going to be a government led by events rather than getting ahead of them.
And Dominic Raab, when you look at it, you'd left Parliament before the general election. So
if that man had not been on this show, what would have been lost from that last 20 seconds? If it had just been silence. If she just turned to an empty space and asked it a question, and it would have just been silence between it, what demonstrably would have been worse about that? I'm not sure how you can answer, frankly.
So you didn't have the sort of disaster of losing your own seat, but it ended pretty badly for your party. Do you have any sympathy for the travails of this new government?
Look, I think as a Democrat and patriot, first and foremost, I want to see Britain do well. Look, it is challenging, but probably the lesson and this is probably true the other side of the Atlantic as well, is in Tim's words, you need a plan. You need to set that out in advance. Actually, the scrutiny of an election, or for example, in the US, of a convention for the Democrats, is actually quite useful in firming up your plans. That gives you impetus going forward.
And in terms, Carla, of what you've seen since you've been into the House of Commons, we had you on the programme lots of times before when you were hoping to make it there. How do you find it as a new MP, as an opposition party that, instinctively, I know you sort of want to back the left governing party on a few things, but how do you think they're getting on?
I totally recognise that they've been handed a pretty tough opening hand for this government, but I also feel that in several areas they've tied their own hand behind their backs. So on taxation, for example, we Greens were calling for putting the onus on those with the broader shoulders who can more easily afford to pay by introducing a wealth tax. The Labour government completely ruled that out before and since the election. On other aspects of the budget, there's been a lot of giving with one hand and taking with the other in a way that is probably counterproductive, so increasing funding on the NHS, but then policies like the two-child benefit cap and the winter fuel payment means testing will increase costs on the NHS. And on the sewage scandal, an independent commission, which is explicitly banned from considering what I think is probably going to be a big part of the solution, or should be a big part of the solution, which is bringing water companies into public hands.
So, lots to talk about.
I mean,
with you three
I think you
today.
mean anti-Semitic, right?
For terms of service reasons, no, I do not mean that.
True.
Clearly, as a former Foreign Secretary, we'll be talking to you about the conflict in Ukraine as well. But one of the issues the government's having to grapple with is transport, because it's not often top of politicians' list. But when trains or planes go wrong, well, then they certainly know about it. Labour's big idea is to set up Great British Rail. They are also spending more cash on the buses, saying that for a long time they've been neglected. They're also freezing fuel duty for drivers. So, what's going on in
Hang on
that
a minute,
brief?
hang on a
Louise
minute.
Haig is
Whoa. Laura, I was told that it was unserious student politics for Jeremy Corbyn to bring up how important buses were at Prime Minister's questions, right? That was what I was told. Yet now Labour are standing on a platform, well, actually, buses are really important, and you just said that they were important. When did that change? Oh, it changed as soon as somebody from Labour right was saying it. Oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, now that money won't be spent in the public sector, it'll just be public money going to private pockets. That's not student politics anymore. That's the adults in the room.
I mean, literally, what was it specifically they said about Corbyn talking about buses? Again, because it was something genuinely insane. What the discourse was.
Well, it did. This is the thing, right? It didn't matter what he'd said. They were going. They'd already got their claws into him over things like national ownership of things and like Israel and stuff like that. So it meant that it didn't matter what he said about anything, they were going to attack him. Literally, I mean, we can go through the litany of nonsense, like he didn't bow at the right angle, or simultaneously there were articles saying him wearing a tie is bad and him not wearing a tie is bad.
To be fair, though, he was a Czechoslovak spy. At least according to the UK press.
He was literally in the pay of the Czechoslovak government, apparently. Yes. Until, of course, he went, crazy. Okay, I'm going to sue you. And they instantly retracted. Because, obviously, it was a lie. So it didn't matter what he said about anything. It was going to be... I mean, literally, are you going to nationalise sausages? Honestly, you should be thrown into the fucking sun.
In immediate trebuchet, first in the line for the trebuchet.
Just honestly, so we need to look back at the ruling class psychosis that was revealed during that time, because it was so fucking mad. It was so mental. Everything about it, like he boiled so much piss from the ruling class. They outed themselves. It was remarkable.
Yeah, and he's studying. Like, we genuinely need to be able to put Corbyn derangement syndrome into the DSM.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. No, it is. It's a problem. I mean, there's still people doing it now. Yeah, exactly. Some people have got long Corbyn derangement syndrome as well, because they're still talking about him, even though he hasn't been relevant for like 5 years.
Exactly.
They'll still bring him up all the time. Like, oh, you don't like Starmer? What about Hitler? For Islington, Like, it's that thing.
So this is the original tweet talking about Corbyn when he brought up buses in PMQs. It's from the Guardian, of course, because they're fucking like Guardian, turf HQ, turf towers. Odd to say the least that the NAO has accused a cabinet minister of misleading Parliament about a controversial welfare policy loathed by Labour, and Corbyn is having a spat about bus fares. Have you considered our Westminster nonsense that we in the media class care about, rather than something that affects like 90% of the population?
Indeed. Well, no, I am talking about Corbyn, yeah, because it's fascinating that the juxtaposition between the Corbyn years and the Starmer years. So it's not that I'm obsessed with Corbyn, it's that they won't let it go. Anyway.
For the first time this morning, it's great to have you with us on a Sunday. Let's start then with the omnibuses, and we'll do trains and planes a bit later on. Now, you're announcing where £1 billion of taxpayers' cash is going in subsidy, but you're taking away the £2 cap on bus fares for passengers. Do you admit, it's logical, that's going to make it more expensive for people to get around?
Well, the £2 fare cap was due to finish on the 31st of December. That was the funding settlement I inherited and the budget settlement that was agreed by the previous government. So we stepped in to protect the cap at £3, which means that for rural routes in particular, where the bus fares could have leapt back up to £13 or £14 in some instances, we're keeping it at much lower at £3. But crucially, for fares...
Right, but that's still a 50% increase.
And like, you can make the case and say, well, look, we have to prioritise our spending. Like, we need to prioritise what we're spending money on. We can't just subsidise buses forever, etc. Right? You could make that line specifically. The problem, of course, is that that's total nonsense, because the total value of all bus fares combined in the UK last year was less than £2 billion. Well, it's not a lot of money for them to continue keeping a cap at £2.
Exactly. I mean, you say you could make the argument you can't subsidise buses forever, to which I would say, yes, you fucking can. You literally can. You could literally 100% subsidise it. You could say, we bring it into ownership and every single motherfucker can use a bus as much as they like.
Exactly. It'll make the roads a lot quieter if we got people out of their cars by inducing demand into public transport, especially at a time where we want people out of their cars for, the fact that AMOC might be making our temperatures go into like perpetual freezing in the UK. That's a thing to look out for at any point between now and 2095.
Yeah, that would be good. But unfortunately, the very first budget that these dickheads have introduced have done two things. Firstly, put a price disincentive for the poorest in society to use buses, and given the slightly richer people in society, the people who own cars and can afford petrol, a freeze on that tax. So like, that literally on both cases the exact wrong approach to tackling inequality and tackling the massive looming climate disaster.
Yeah, I mean, because things people always butt in and they'll say things like, well, what about poor people who need to drive? And that is true. That is true. There are poor people who do need to drive, and I think we need to have a conversation about how we can get these people the transport they need that is affordable. But the vast majority of poor people don't drive.
Yeah.
The vast majority of poor people cannot afford a car, and they are getting the bus, and you are making the buses more expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Like I say, if you 100% nationalised all the buses, which used to be the case, and 100% subsidy, so it's free for everyone, no one can complain then. Because you can just get on a fucking bus anywhere and go anywhere. It would actually open the country up to a lot of people.
And that's the thing, right, is that none of this is considered by our journalists class for just the same reason as they got mad at Jeremy Corbyn for talking about buses at Prime Minister's Question, which affects large, huge members of the population. Well, of course, journalists don't get the bus. They say, well, you should have been talking about Brexit or this thing that's going on at Westminster. Well, no, actually, buses are very important to people. I mean, Lisa Nandy brought this up in the 2020 leadership campaign. As much as I hate her, she was right. Most people have their own material concerns to look at, and a policy such as we are making buses more expensive will cut through in a way that certain different nebulous changes to tax policy might not. So it's not only bad for the climate and for people's pockets. It's also just bad politically as well.
True. Also, I think that thing that's not taken into account is that even those people who are a bit more aware of, you know, average person's needs, if they're in the media, they live in London, in and around London, where the transport system, and the Cockneys are going to be annoyed by me now, is vastly superior to the rest of the country. Partly because it's mostly in public ownership, of course. And so even those that think that, like, you know, try and take into account working class people's perspectives are surrounded by working class people who have a functioning transport system around them. So that's not going to be on their priority list at all. Whereas, literally, for anyone in the southeast of England, please travel to any other part of the country and try and get on a train or a bus or anything. Just try and travel around the place and find out how fucking just completely hollowed out the infrastructure is in this country. It's a shithole.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the country is a shithole.
Absolutely. The only other place I've had good bus travel was Manchester, and it still wasn't even that good. It was still, like, fine and also frustrating at times. So outside of London, all travel in public transport has just been an absolute mess. And again, loads of these things are pretty much directly downwind of privatization, because different buses run different routes with different tickets that you have to buy for a day ticket. Your week ticket might be on some routes. One route was the same number bus, but run by different bus companies at different times. So you could get on one bus route the same day, buy a day ticket that you couldn't use in the evening because a different bus company was running the route now. It was a mess. It was a total mess.
Yay! Another privatization success story.
Yet another privatization success story. Absolutely. Also, thank you, Jack, for the $9.99. The increase in bus fare flies right in the face of what Lou Haig personally cares for, which is about active travel. She tweets about it a lot. I know it's a passion of hers. Well, again, I mean, Lou Haig is one of the less bad members of the cabinet, right? You know, I don't have zero time for her in the way that I have zero time for others. Like, I do have some amount of time for her, but, you know, she's got to, again, stay within her brief, given that she almost lost her job over her P&O tweets.
Also, she's got woke hair.
She has pretty pronouns in bio, yeah.
Yeah.
As in cities where previously the fare might have been even less than £2, we're setting it so that operators can't raise fares in more than in line with inflation. So we wouldn't expect all fares to rise to £3. That is a maximum amount.
Yeah, but they will, and you know they will. It's the same when they increase the fucking cap for tuition fees. Well, we don't expect that every course will be. Yeah, they will. Of course they fucking will.
And on top of that, she says, well, within cities, bus fares that aren't which are below £2, we want to make sure they don't rise faster than inflation. I'm just like, I've lived in cities since forever, right? I've never not lived in like a big town or in a city. I have not. I used to pay £2 for a bus when I was 18, which was 15 years ago.
I was about to say, the last time I took, other than like a short hop fare, which I don't even know if that still even exists, the last time I paid less than £2 for a journey was when I was at high school.
Exactly. Actually, I remember getting, it used to be the 850 from Reading to High Wycombe. That was like £1.50, I think, when I was like 15 or whatever. Yeah. But since I was 18, it's always been £2. I think the only time, other than like the Magic Bus, the 192 in Manchester between the city centre and East Didsbury, right? That used to be like capped at £1, but that was, I think, being done specifically as a subsidy by the Greater Manchester region.
Communists.
Other than that. Yeah, literal communists. Other than that, I've literally not paid less than £2 in the city. That's not a thing. When was? Does anyone else here? Maybe I'm just out of touch. Is there anyone else here who's paid less than £2 for a bus ever in the last decade?
I don't think so. Honestly, I really don't. Try in the north of Ireland. No. All day travel via bus in the north of Ireland is £20. £20. And it's shite. Well, yeah. Is that like a bomb tax? Just in case? Or what? I don't know. I don't know how it works. I pay €365 for a year ticket to be able to use public transport in this capital city. What, you presumably live in Vienna then? Because you're Austrian? Both day and night, including the privately owned ones. So that's €1 a day. So what's that, 90 pence or something a day?
Pretty good value.
That's amazing value, and no doubt being subsidised by us because they've invested in our fucking our railways. Bastards, man! I can't believe we're literally fucking subsidising French and Belgian fucking travel. Whilst we can't build a railway line from London to Manchester anymore. We could do that 200 fucking years ago. What? Ugh.
But you know, Kevin, the free market is just more efficient.
It's just more efficient at fucking us. Honestly, it's such a lean production in fucking this nation. They've done it brilliantly.
True.
God almighty.
What's really important, though, about this settlement today is that we're improving reliability and frequency of services. You know, for lots of rural areas, they don't have a bus at all, or they don't have one that turns up before 9 a.m. or after 5 p.m. This unprecedented level of...
Which is another reason we should nationalise, so that people who live in these areas are guaranteed bus service. Because private companies don't want to do it, because it's not very financially advantageous for them. But
Exactly,
I don't give a
you
fuck,
know.
because I don't think we should run things on the basis of financial advantageousness to rich bastards, but rather on human need.
Indeed. I mean, like, I'm still even open, right, you know, to things being done on a market basis for things that aren't essential, right? Like, whatever, you know, you want to have a market for chocolate and people can pay what they want, that's fine, you know, but chocolate isn't an essential. Unless, of course, you're a grieving widow, right? Whereas, you know, buses, transport, this shit needs to happen.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you know, people in John O'Groats need transport just as much as people in Acton, right?
But for Americans,
unfortunately,
John O'Groats is a real place. That's not the name of a person or a character in a film. People live there. Yeah.
yeah. So, you know, but unfortunately, people in John, there's very little financial incentive to serve the handful of people in John O'Groats rather than the hundreds of thousands of people in Acton.
Exactly, yes. Which is why the basic rule of thumb should be, if you can't opt out of using it, it shouldn't be run for a profit.
Yeah.
And you can't opt out of travel. You do have to travel. You can't opt out of healthcare. You need healthcare. You can't opt out of water. You need water. These sorts of things. They shouldn't be run for a profit. They should be in national hands, making money for the nation.
Inelastic demand.
Indeed. Yes. I just checked. It's £2 to get from one side of the capital to the other in, what's that, in East Lothian. Oh, in Scotland. Okay. I mean, I'm guessing that's not a massive distance, though. No, from one side of the capital and county to the other. Oh, you've got quite cheap buses then in Lothian. Non-binary. Okay.
I mean, there's like free bus travel for, is it under 21s in Scotland at the moment?
I have no idea, but again, as always, Scotland is infinitely more based.
Mm-hmm.
However bad the SNP are. And they are, I mean, did you hear they're planning on cutting 40% of their staff a week before Christmas?
No, I didn't know that.
Genius. SNP, are you trying to lose the next election? Are you actually trying?
I mean, John Swinney's just shit. He's just shit. God, fucking hell. Imagine. It's just, honestly, looking at the world we live in, right? Going from Johnson, Corbyn and Sturgeon to Starmer, Swinney and fucking Badenoch. God, how far we've fallen. Jesus Christ. At least Johnson was funny, right? At least Johnson was funny.
And laid pipe. Which you can respect.
Pipe, right? Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, he was a character, whereas Badenoch is just fucking evil. Starmer is, I mean, he frees his pensioners and starves children, as well as being a soporific dullard. Yeah. And John Swinney is just ruining everything that's good about the SNP.
True.
But populism bad.
Adults in the room.
The funding, particularly into rural areas, will vastly improve services, their reliability and frequency.
But protecting the cap, as you put it, means increasing fares for lots of people. And one of our viewers has been in touch. Kay Carter-Mead says her sister-in-law is a cleaner and a dinner lady. She has to take 3 buses to get to work. It's going to cost her, therefore, an extra £15 a week just to get to work. Where's she meant to find the money on?
Well, I think for people that rely on those kind of numbers of buses, they'd be unlikely to catch 3 single fares. I think it'd be much more economical to buy a kind of weekly card in lots of instances.
Okay, this is a real-life example.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter either way. You're fucking them. Like, answer the question.
One of our viewers says in their family, somebody's going to have to find an extra £15 a week, and that's money they don't have. So what are they meant to do?
Well, if we hadn't taken action, the fare cap would have been lifted entirely. So we've stepped in.
Right, and you could have kept it in place completely. Why have you chosen to go? Well, actually, they can pay £3. Fuck them. Like,
And it's nothing. It's worth like a tiny amount extra
yeah.
to put the cap at £2 rather than £3. And Barry Brown points out exactly in chat in this difference of £1, which makes real difference to people on the ground, but is it's infinitesimal in terms of budget spending for the government, right? But they want to look sensible. There's the vibe of being sensible and not just spending on things because they think it would be good for optics. They want to have the optics of looking sensible rather than looking generous. And Barry Brown has described it that it sums up the miserablest, penny-wise, pound-foolish, spreadsheet dad, value-of-nothing idiocy of the Labour Party and all of its current supporters. And I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, that's a great description. Yes, the buses in Lothian and Edinburgh are both national, and so that's why they're able to charge £2 to travel places. Yeah, yep. It's fair. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. It's so pathetic that this is the Labour Party. This is our left-wing option, is it? We're cooked. It's over.
With £150 million to protect that level of fare.
Up for people.
But
So
they
where
shouldn't
are they
go
meant
up.
to
So
spend the
depending
money?
on where this lady lives, it shouldn't go up to £3. If she's relying on bus services, particularly in urban areas, as I say, they shouldn't be allowed to increase more than inflation. So it shouldn't go up that much.
Shouldn't, but what are you going to do if it does?
And even then, right, if it's not going up to £3, then it would cost the state even less to subsidise the cap down to £2.
Yeah.
If it's going up to £2.60 or whatever, then that's very, very small amounts. That's like peanuts in terms of the overall government budget. And again, only somebody who is penny pinching to the nth degree would think that this was worth it, especially at the cost of the gigantic amounts of political capital of all of the people who otherwise would be completely disengaged from politics, right? Luke Trill, the head of More in Common, which is a very kind of well-founded pollster that I have a lot of respect for, was talking about how people in focus groups say, well, my mum talks about how good the £2 fare cap was, and she never talks about politics, but she was going on to me, apropos of nothing, about how good this £2 bus fare cap was, right? This is something that has a real impact on people's lives. It really cuts through, and they're incinerating political capital for absolutely nothing whatsoever to save 0.00001% or whatever it is of the government's overall budget, when they could have just put a point extra on capital gains tax at the last budget and completely avoided all of this.
Yeah, but it's about the adults in the room. It's vibes. Peter
It's
Mandelson
vibes,
would not have
yeah.
liked it, so it was not allowed.
But we are keeping fares at a level that will protect those services in rural areas and, crucially, improving the reliability and frequency. So it means more people can get the bus. It's not an option for too many people, and too many towns and villages are completely cut off from public transport at the moment.
And you are clearly trying to sort of reset this and put a focus on bus services that, more than 3 million people rely on. But there's an important question here. You say you're protecting the cap at £3 for now. What happens at the end of 2025? I mean, can you tell people today that the fares are going to be held at that level for good?
No, because they're probably just going to fucking cave into business again. Why wouldn't they? That's all they ever fucking do.
Fare cap is funded until the end of 2025, so we'll use this period to design what comes next. But for the funding settlement that we've agreed with the Treasury is to protect the fare cap until the end of 2025. So we'll design what comes after that. But crucially,
this go up at the end of 2025.
Well, it's only funded until the end of 2025.
Okay.
Yay! £200 bus fares in 2026. Woo!
I mean, again, she was talking about this. She was asked this specifically by Trevor Phillips on today's Sunday morning programme. And she said that they wanted to design a more targeted version of doing this, targeted at young people. And I'm like, no, how about we stop means testing? How about, we actually make the case for universalism after 15 bloody years of constant like means testing fetishism, of trying to strip everything good away so that nobody could potentially benefit from it who doesn't explicitly need it 100% gets it, or won't be getting it anymore. Like all this kind of fine-tuned means testing in case we piss off somebody who thinks that a benefit is being given out undeservedly in their high-minded opinion. It's a hiding to nothing, because all we'll do is strip everything away, so it's all means tests. It's all unnecessary bureaucracy trying to hyper-target every benefit when it would be cheaper, more efficient, and fewer people would go slipping through the net if we just made these things universal. And we could make the case for ending this period of continued means tests. But nope, they've just turned into George Osborne and Ian Duncan Smith, and they're doing it again and again and again.
Yeah, exactly.
On more and more different things.
This is not the change that people wanted. This is not the change that people voted for. But there we go. It doesn't matter, because the actual people that this is targeted at is the editor of the Daily Mail and the Sun. Those are the people. Those are the people that run the country. Let's be honest.
Because I think that they think they can get away with ditching universalism as a concept by applying the means test to groups that previously didn't have their means test applied to them, essentially to see how they like it, to try and win over young people's votes and saying, look, we're means testing it away from you. We're our means tests, we apply them to the elderly and the middle-aged who now get higher bus fares and lower winter fuel payments, right? We're not means testing for you, we're means testing for everybody else, which is the same kind of divide and rule that the Conservatives did, but the other way around. And I'm like, no, just do universalism. Also, and that will actually bring, that'll bring together multiple voting cohorts to support you. What the hell are you doing? It's not just stupid economics, it's terrible politics.
It is terrible politics, because for a start off, young people aren't so fucking ridiculously spite-based. Like, they have grandparents and shit, Like, they also wouldn't want them frozen to death. Like, they see your shittiness, and just because you aren't targeting them specifically doesn't mean they're going to come around to you. It's not like young people are like, yay, freeze granny to death, woo! Look, no. You're literally driving people into the arms of reform, you fucking pricks.
But this settlement, crucially, is a record level of investment, particularly for rural areas, places like Devon, Kent, Essex, that got very, very little under the previous government because of the way they designed their funding settlements. They pitted areas against each other, they insisted on competition, and they rewarded those areas who, frankly, invested in the best bid writers rather than based on need. We've designed a formula that allocates the funding based on need, deprivation, and bus mileage in the area, so that we can truly improve bus services for every corner of the country.
You're also taking a different tack on the trains. So you're creating Great British Rail, which you say is nationalising the railways. But if it's not going to actually lower fares, which you're not promising, the companies that are leasing trains will still make profits, as we understand it. So what's the point if fares might still go up and people would still make profits out of the railways?
Well, I was very clear that my immediate priority was improving the reliability and reducing cancellations. We've experienced record delays and cancellations over the last few years on our railways, and that has massively undermined confidence for people to use them, and it's reduced our revenue. So stepping in immediately and resetting industrial relations with the workforce has led to improved passenger confidence, and we've achieved record revenues on some of our lines, particularly LNER, where we've seen reduced cancellations and improved performance. But crucially, the important thing about bringing railways into public ownership is that you combine track and train decisions. Over the last 30 years of privatisation, we've seen the infrastructure operator working in one direction and 14 different train operating companies pulling in a different one, which means the passenger is the last person that the industry focuses on.
But several lines are already in public ownership. I mean, why would a government organisation be any better at running the train lines than other operators? I mean, Northern Rail, for example, is already in public ownership, and everybody watching north of about Watford today knows that the performance of that line is absolutely woeful. So why would Louise Haigh, sitting in Whitehall, be...
Let's be real. But the performance of Northern Rail was woeful because of its period in private ownership, right? It was so bad. It wasn't just taken away for financial reasons, like most places are. Like, I know the place where Welsh trains, like the trains in Wales, and LNER were taken in because of financial reasons for the previous operator, whereas Northern Rail, the Conservative government under Grant Shapps of all people, looked at Northern Rail's performance and said, "You are too shit. We can do this better." That's why they were gotten rid of. They just, your performance is bad. You can't run trains. Fuck off and die, was what Grant Shapps said to them. I'm quoting him directly in Minecraft, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, if Laura Koonsberg's idea here is, well, why would someone in Whitehall be better at running this? Are you just suggesting it's impossible to run a system of transportation? Because there are countries in the world that run extraordinarily good transportation systems. So, like, clearly there must be some model. It doesn't. If it's either private or public or whatever. Like, you don't seem to have faith that anyone can run a train system in this country, which is interesting considering we invented train systems.
And also, I will say that with Northern Rail, it literally has improved since the state took over, right? They have updated the rolling stock at least somewhat. When I was getting Northern Rail trains, like, 6 years ago or whatever, like, they were still using fucking Pacers. That's how embarrassing Northern Rail was. I remember getting a Pacer train from Lancaster to Barrow. That was an embarrassment.
Again, both of those places are real. I'm just, Americans don't believe the
No, one of them has a bomber named after it, and the other has a garden implement named after it.
Is it actually named after Barrow?
No.
Oh, okay.
Any better at running a train service than people who've been trying their best to do it for years?
Well, first and foremost, it's definitely not going to be me. I've got no experience of running a rail service. It's not going to be me. So this is crucially
public
Great
ownership.
British. Yeah,
I know
Great
that
British
you
Railways
call yourself
will be...
the passenger in chief.
Exactly.
But why should people have any faith that an organisation set up by the government, and okay, it'll be an arm's length body, would be better at doing this?
Well, the irony is actually over the...
How could it be worse? It was so bad that the Tories nationalised it, you dopey bastards. How could it possibly be worse? I would trust a fucking trained chimp to be able to run it better than the system that already existed. Privatisation has been a fucking disaster, and this was the poster child for it.
Exactly. Like, again, the easy answer to this, of course, is that there is no mechanism for which poor private ownership of railways punishes the operators, because it's again another market with inelastic demand. You can't just choose which train service you use. You need to get to a place, one train service run this because it's only one set of tracks, so you get that train. That's it. That is your singular choice within the market. There is no feedback that can be given to punish private companies for their failures. Whereas if a state runs the publicly owned railways poorly, they can get voted out. The feedback that they get is the democratic will of the people ditching them electorally if they don't run the trains well. Yes. That is an actual punishment for poor behaviour that you do not get in a private market.
Last few years, particularly since COVID, there's been more operational interference by my department than previously. So we've got the worst of all worlds. We're paying private operators hundreds of millions of pounds in fees, and they're paying that out to dividends to their shareholders, whilst we've got this operational interference from Whitehall officials. What we want to do is set up Great British Railways that will be arm's length, operationally independent from the government, and that's why I'm the passenger in chief and not the fat controller. And they will be running the railways in the interest of the passenger and the taxpayer. At the moment...
Fat controller? She just lost her woke card. This is outrageous.
True. I mean, she's making a good point here, actually. Again, as one of the cabinet members who's not a bell end, broadly.
Yeah.
She's making a correct point here, right? That we're trying to run this in public interest rather than in the interests of the increase in profit for shareholders.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why you'd want to bring them into public ownership.
We've got, as I say, all these competing interests, and it's not even necessarily whether it's about in public or private ownership, but that it is exclusively focused on delivering for the passenger. And by bringing track and train back together, we will ensure that investment in infrastructure has a knock-on effect of delivery for the passenger. We reduce those delays and cancellations, we improve the reliability of the railways, and we ensure the culture of the railways delivers for people.
But you didn't drive a hard bargain when it came to the train drivers' strike So you got people back to work by offering them pretty chunky inflation-busting pay deals. What strings did you attach to that offer?
Well,
Also,
firstly,
pause.
it wasn't inflation.
Oh, again, she's about to make the point I was going to make. It wasn't inflation busting. It was higher than what inflation was at the time that the deal was agreed. But of course, that was before a period where inflation was 4 times that, and they didn't get a pay settlement. So, has their increase in pay made up for, in real terms, the overall cumulative inflation for the 2 or 3 years previous? No. Therefore, it's not inflation busting.
Yeah. Also, you'll notice it's inflation busting when it's, relatively poor people getting it. When it's wankers assigning themselves tens of millions of pounds in bonuses and share dividends, that's fine. That doesn't ever get questioned or mentioned. That's just adults in the room, normal politics. Thank you, Andreas, with $2, who says, you can't get the trains to run on time, ? Come on, UK. Yeah, no, we can't get... Well, it's not even that we can't get them to run on time. We can't get them to run. They so often just don't arrive.
No, exactly. I think that Northern Rail should change their tagline, their slogan, to Northern apologises for this late running and the inconvenience caused.
Yeah. Like, when I say we're a bus replacement nation, A, it's funny and kind of poetic, but B, it's also true. It's also just actually correct.
Stop it.
Unfortunately.
We literally have a replacement bus service for the Tory party as a government.
Hey, literally, yeah. We apologise for the delay in the Tory Express. You have a replacement Starmer service from 2024 to 2029. Possibly. Anyway, thank you, Wayward Historian, who, by the way, can we all get some love in chat for Wayward Historian, who puts way more work into this channel than I do, frankly, as my parasocial PA. God bless them.
True, we stand.
And 45 months you've been with me. That is too many months. Please seek help.
Inflation busting, because we were looking for the last 3 years. It was actually below inflation, and the previous
Put
government.
It all together, it was a generous deal.
It was a deal over 3
years.
years when inflation at that period had been 12%, and we set it at 4.5%.
But what strings did you attach?
So
to
we
it?
had agreements with the drivers' union in particular to take forward agreements around training, and we're going through those agreements at the moment in order to look at moving to.
Hang on a minute. Pause. Oh well, what strings did you agree? Why the fuck should there be strings? Prices have increased. They need to maintain real terms wages, and they haven't even done that.
Yeah.
They've not even had real terms wage increases, because as I said, it's not inflation busting.
Yeah, they're not even back to parity. They're not even breaking even. They're still, it's real terms, it's a pay cut over the last 12 years or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, if it was a pay rise, if it was outstripping inflation, if it was making it so they were being paid more, maybe you could absolutely justify there being some quid pro quo in increased productivity, for example. I would think that would be perfectly reasonable if they were just getting paid more in real terms. But they're not even doing that. They're still getting paid less than they were than 2 years ago in real terms. It's just, slightly better than some other people are getting elsewhere. How is this a question?
Yeah.
Competency-based training, which will improve the settlement for the taxpayer and improve and streamline delivery.
And also, in terms of settlement for the taxpayer, it must be borne in mind the Tories cost the country more to fight their ideological fucking battle against the trade unions in this than if they'd just given them what they'd wanted in the first place. It cost more to do the performative lack of virtue signalling that the Tories did. Yeah, the vice signalling that the Tories did in order to say fuck you to the trade unions at all turns, because that's literally the only response they can ever possibly have. Positive industrial relations is gay, didn't you know, right? Then to just have agreed to it in the first place. So actually, there's no point putting good money after bad. Just cut your losses. Give them the fucking pay deal, which again they didn't even get what they wanted, and they're not even back to parity. So you gave them a slightly shit deal, and you're still making it out like this is some sort of gold-plated fucking thing, and it's not. It's not at all.
No, you're absolutely right. And again, people will say, "Oh, this is the Labour caving to their union barons, which is obviously a stupid statement to begin with. But second of all, like, no, they just didn't want to waste all of the money that the Conservative government had already fucking wasted fighting the deals.
Also, again, with the barons shit, firstly, the Tories are literally stock and barrel owned by rich, evil, racist wankers, but that's irrelevant apparently. And secondly, the largest union in this dispute was the RMT, which isn't even fucking aligned to the Labour Party.
Yeah.
So it's not, they're not union barons at all. It's literally like a hostile entity.
Exactly. They're a competing party, the Trade Unionist and Socialist Coalition. You know, an explicit Trotskyist splinter group that fights against the Labour Party. Like that's the complete opposite of that. And that's a good point by Big Al in chat talking about, you know, real terms pay cuts, right? How pay rises are supposed to come with increases in productivity, but why did we expect the junior doctors, for example, to work 35% less hours if they had a 35% reduction in pay in real terms, right? Did we expect a reduction in productivity when there was a reduction in real wages? Well, no, that didn't happen either, right? Why should it only ever be in the employer's favour? It's ridiculous. Ridiculous framing.
Well, that's the thing with flexible workforce. It's only ever flexible in one direction.
Mm-hmm.
The employer doesn't need to be flexible. It just means they can sack you without any reason. Like, you have to be flexible enough to bend over the fucking table, and that is it.
Mm-hmm.
Of particularly new rolling stock when it comes on. There are loads of archaic settlements across the railways that we're finding every day, and we need to work with the unions and with the employers, the operators at the moment, to get through them and to make sure that we have a modern, efficient set of terms and conditions for the railways, because I'm very clear we don't have that at the moment. But I inherited a picture where we had the longest running industrial dispute on our railways, and it was my priority to fix that, to get that back to work, to restore confidence in the railways. And then when we have a less combative environment, then we can work to deliver those workforce reforms. And I'm pleased that we're already starting to see progress on that. You hope they'll do it, but
they have already had the pay deal. It's good to have you with us for the first time, but we have talked about you and your job before. Many viewers will remember, they might have heard of you for the first time when your reviews on the ferry company, P&O, were reported. Do you still...
When she said the based thing, and then Keir Starmer being, like, allergic to based things, had to come out and threaten to sack her for being based.
Sad, isn't it?
Pathetic.
think that P&O is a rogue operator?
I think everyone agrees that what P&O Ferries did 2.5 years ago was completely unacceptable. It was illegal.
A rogue operator.
No, I accept that my language, you know, was an unhelpful distraction at the time.
Cock!
This is a genuine, like, hilariously cocked behaviour. Like, I know, right, she's got to fall in line, she's a cabinet member, she's got to read from the same script, you know, the Morgan McSweeney diktat that she's been handed down to her. And just watching these people be as pathetic as they are, especially when the people on the right threw an absolute shit fit and their toys out the pram, briefing left, right and centre and refusing to stay on message when Corbyn was leader, and watching these people just grovel to the Starmer Politburo and refusing to stick to any principles just shows you how pathetic and cucked they all are.
Well, that's the thing. When you say they have to fall in line, no, they don't. You could actually have, you know, be a human being and have an opinion on a thing, and force his hand. Force his hand. Say no, fire me then, you cunt. Go on, fire me. I dare you. I double dare you. You're making a rod for your own back either way. And what she said was true, and she knows what she said was true. They are a fucking rogue operator.
True, exactly, 100%.
Whereas now she's like, I'm sorry, my words were unhelpful. It was a distraction. You're a fucking joke.
Time, particularly at that moment. But what I am pleased that we are able to have done as a government, and what I think was lost in the reporting, was that we are legislating to ensure that P&O Ferries illegal sacking of those 800 workers can never happen again.
And would you get on a P&O ferry now? At the time you said you'd boycott it and other people should do so too.
I would like to see P&O Ferries implement their Seafarers Charter and...
So that's no. I am still boycotting it, but I have to pretend I'm not doing that, so I'm not going to answer your question. I'm literally welded to the cuck chair.
Abide by the minimum wage regulations that we are bringing into force on the 1st of December. and then I'd be very happy to get on a P&O ferry.
Okay, we're going to talk about another issue now, which is really important to our viewers, which is social care. Now, one of the government's huge problems is that they promised that they would solve how we care for the elderly and vulnerable in England. And for more than a year, Labour has promised in this studio to reveal their plans. But multiple sources have told us in the last couple of weeks there's something of a standoff at the top of government, a genuine impasse, one Whitehall insider told me. The Health Department is keen to crack on with reform, I'm told. The Treasury, understandably perhaps, is worried about the cost, and they're both seeking a political steer from Number 10. And the Chancellor, the Prime Minister and the Health Secretary are due to meet to consider what to do a week tomorrow. This is what Wes Streeting had to say yesterday.
This is so funny to me, right? So this is 100% an artifact of the fact that they hadn't got a fucking clue what they were going to do when they were in government, and had a completely empty manifesto with pablum and no actual detail whatsoever, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing. This is why you're immediately getting fights on policy everywhere, because they just hadn't laid out anything or any plan of what they were going to do. Remember, with 5 years in opposition, with Keir Starmer as leader, with most people still in the same position, like some Treasury faces changed, like the Chancellor changed from Annalise Dodds to Rachel Reeves in 2021, I think it was, and Darren Jones was reshuffled in as Shadow Secretary to the Treasury in 2023. But other than that, the whole cabinet broadly has stayed the same, including Wes Streeting being Shadow Health into becoming Health Secretary now. And they could have entirely understood the reality of where they were going to raise taxes to pay for national care services they had in like all of the National Policy Forum documentation at any point before today. And they've just not fucking bothered because they were too busy, I don't know, shagging people in the toilets at the Spectator Garden Party. And whereas in the Corbyn manifesto, all of it was laid out, all of it was costed. It was a comprehensive plan to revamp social care, revamp the health service, and try and get things, unironically, back on their feet with fixed foundations. And these people have fucking nothing. And now they're going to get into government and they're going to have rows and impasses, genuine quote-unquote impasses, because they hadn't bothered to sort this out in any point during the last 5 fucking years.
Because they thought they could.
In the room.
Well, they just thought they could govern as they were in opposition with vibes. Just do right-wing vibesy things, and it'll be fine. And then you realise, oh shit, no, you've got to have a policy. Oh fuck. Oh no.
Genuinely pathetic. Just gonna get a drink. 1 sec.
Okay.
Immediate steps to tackle the crisis. We're building both the 10-year plan for the NHS. We've already launched the biggest national conversation ever, and the Prime Minister and the Chancellor and I are thinking about how to do the same thing with social care. So as well as taking immediate actions, we make the right long-term decisions.
And we know from you.
Absolutely pointless. Honestly, every time I hear him speak, I just think the heat death of the universe can't come quick enough. Really.
There are so many thousands of families caught up in this, a real dilemma. Here's just one example of why
500 fucking votes. 500!
It matters. Deborah Crisp has been in touch to explain why she thinks the system has to change.
3 years ago, my 98-year-old mother had to go into a care home due to dementia and other health issues. It's a wonderful care home. She's really, really happy there. She funded it via the sale of her retirement flat, just under £200,000, and now that money has gone. The local authorities say they cannot fund her to stay where she is and she will need to be moved somewhere else. And we feel that due to her multiple health issues, it would be catastrophic for her to be moved elsewhere, and we really fear for her safety.
Now, Louise, you were chair of the parliamentary group on social care, so I know it's not your job now, but you are familiar with this issue. Do you accept that the longer the government takes to make its mind up, the worse this situation gets for families, not just like Deborah's, but people stuck in here and people stuck in hospital?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really urgent that we fix this issue, and countless of your viewers will have been in exactly the same situation that Deborah finds herself in now. You know, watching that was exactly the situation my grandma was in till she died. It's you know, for too long we've let.
Bit Partridge there, little bit Partridge.
this problem fester, and that's why it was really important that we stepped in to establish the fair pay agreement in legislation. That was actually one of the really key things that my all-party group looked at with the previous social care minister Gillian Keegan when she was still in Parliament.
But this is about the longer term overhaul. Now, your manifesto said that there would be plans for a national care service. Wes Streeting.
Again, the fucking manifesto said there would be plans, not that they had a plan.
We've got concepts of a plan.
Yeah, exactly. That's the entire manifesto was just, we're gonna have an industrial strategy. We're gonna have this. Why don't you already have these fucking things? That's the point of the manifesto, is for you to list the things you want to do.
They unironically had concepts of a plan.
They really did. They really did. Trump was cribbing from the Labour Party manifesto, I think.
As Shadow Health Secretary 18 months ago sat in that chair and said that the plan would come. We haven't seen the plan. There is no suggestion that it is imminent. We know there's a meeting shortly between 3 people at the top of government. I suppose the question many people wonder is, how can you convince them you really are taking this seriously when there's no sign of your long-term plan?
Well, just a few, 4 months into government, Wes Streeting has set out the 10-year plan for the NHS, and crucially, a big part of that reform is to move to prevention and to community care. Now, that community care element will start to ease pressures on social care. In the budget, there was £600 million allocated through local authorities for social care.
Making care homes pay national insurance, that's not even going to touch the sides. Some providers told me this week they might not even be able to, they might have to close down because of that extra cost.
Well, and that kind of funding will be set out as we develop through the budget and through the allocations. But the fair pay agreement, I can't stress how important that will be, because there were 150,000 vacancies in the care sector when we entered government, and that is precisely because there aren't the progression opportunities in the care sector. Too many care workers aren't paid properly, despite it being a really important, and in a lot of cases, a really medicalised, highly skilled job. They're paid not far off minimum wage. So we need to make sure we are tackling those long-term issues in the workforce with progression opportunities, properly paid and properly negotiated on a collective basis.
And do you want to involve the other parties in putting together a solution here?
I think Wes Streeting was on your programme just a few weeks ago and said exactly that. I think it's really important that we build that long-term consensus, because this problem has played
How about,
our
I've got an
politics
idea.
for too long.
How about we set up a task force, and then a task force Quango to evaluate the task force, to come up with a concept of a plan, to have another task force, to then have a Quango that sets up a plan for social care. That sounds like a really good plan to me.
Right, but who's going to overlook that Quango? What you're going to need is another task force, I think. It's the only way. Who polices the police? Who Quangos the Quangos?
Long.
Okay, well, as if by magic, we're about to talk to one of them. But Louise Haig, it's great to have you with us in the studio for the first time on a Sunday. Thank you for your time. Well, the pressure is certainly on the government to make its mind up, not least from the Liberal Democrats, who have made sorting out social care in England one of their very biggest priorities. Their leader, Sir Ed Davey, has made no bones about his very personal reasons for pursuing the subject. As a teenager, he cared at home for his mother, and now he is a carer for his disabled teenage son, John. I suspect you
Didn't stop
well
him from
remember
slashing disabled benefits when he was in fucking government.
Well, no, because he's rich enough. I hate when they try and do this. They did this with David Cameron, who has a disabled child as well, right? When you're a multi-squillionaire and your missus is like royalty or some shit, or whatever the fuck it is, I don't know. Anyway, they're both vastly fucking rich. They don't really have the same, like, constraints. They don't have the same pressures on them in the way that someone who is poor, who is in the same situation. So they were both humanised with this fucking shite you see here, the manufacturing consent machine going off the fucking rails again. But they're rich enough that it doesn't matter. Like, when you say he's his carer, I'm guessing he doesn't fucking have to wipe his arse every day. I'm guessing he's mostly at Westminster doing his job because he can afford carers. Like, it wasn't mentioned in the fucking Newsnight bit where it was like the humanising Cameron about, oh, he looks after his disabled kid. No, they had 2 nannies. 2! So what exactly did he do then? Occasionally drove them to school, basically. That's it. That was
and
his...
then left. And not to mention leaving them in the restaurant.
He did also leave his children behind, yes, because he's a monster. He's literally a monster, man.
He's a monster. Speaking of humanizing David Cameron, right? Here is an article from today about how a generation of children have no swimming skills at all. And this is a completely unrelated story that since 2010, £15 billion of public assets have been sold off by English local authorities, which is including swimming pools within that 75,000 number of assets sold off, including community centres and libraries as well. So thanks, David. Thanks, David. Really appreciate all of your hard work. Really appreciate all of your hard work, David and Gideon. David and Gideon's hard work in shredding every single facet of the public realm that might actually help people from underprivileged backgrounds succeed. But no, let's all have a little clap round for how much hard work David Cameron does paying for the nannies to take care of his children for him.
True. And you know what's worse? They can't swim, and because of the malnutrition in the nation, they're actually shorter, so they can drown in a smaller amount of water as well. So being able to swim would have been very useful. Because literally, the Tory government have destroyed this country.
Yep.
Thanks. Talking of destroying countries, James from the internet. What a segue. Welcome in, James from the internet, Raiderinos. Much love to you. I'm Kevin Logan, a cunt from England. Who cares? And joining me is No Justice MTG, who is fucking awesome. You should go and follow them immediately.
Get some help.
Please do.
And thank you to James from the internet for resubscribing. With 42 months, James. Honestly, sort yourself the fuck out. You've been with me 42 months. What the fuck is wrong with you? You're broken.
John DeBrayson points out in chat the swimming pool that you learned to swim in as a child was one of the things that was absolutely left to rot due to austerity. And now the Tories are agitating on trying to bring it back as a way to win back Shipley, right? Which is crazy. Like, they were literally the people in control of both the council and the seats in Shipley, and they were the ones who made sure the swimming pool rotted and trying to run it. Like, I know I have heard Philip Davies, when before the election, bang on about the swimming pool in Shipley the whole fucking time.
Yeah. Thank you, Andreas, with $2. It says, can you just tell us what the tax rate should be, Kevin? 69%. Ayo.
69.420%.
True. Based and big
Also,
chungus pilled.
So I say thank you to Jack Miller for the $9.99 super chat and the 10 gifts. That's very much appreciated. And Monkey Sputum with the 100 bits. Gideon Osborne tried saying that the means testing of child benefit affected him. I genuinely, like, the things that I hope happen to George Osborne violate terms of service. That's what I'll say.
The kinds of things I want to have happen, something, advanced butchery skills. Moving
in
on.
Minecraft.
Released during the election campaign, which gave us a glimpse of their life at home, a different environment to how we normally see political leaders in Westminster and in studios like this. Well, Sir Ed is with us this morning. Welcome to you. It's good to have you with us on a Sunday again. Now, we've reported this week the government seems to be at an impasse over what to do. We know that they're considering whether to have
Have they considered a 5p bag tax? That'll fix everything. That'll be fine. That will absolutely outweigh the privatisation of the NHS. It'll be fine.
cross-party royal commission, which could take several years, but might take the politics out of this issue, or whether there should be an independent government-backed review.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take the politics out of this state-funded.
Yeah, I think what people don't like is the most important and most loved institution in the country being dealt with in a political way. What they want is an absolute. What you want is a robot as your doctor. I think actually, yeah. These people are mad when they're going about. Let's not politicise this. You're in Parliament, you cunt. What the fuck are you talking about? If you can't politicise a thing in Parliament, where the fuck could you do that? Why are you there if you don't want to politicise things? You're a fucking politician. The world is full of cunts. It really is. Ugh.
Between those two mechanisms, or actually, some people in the sector say, you know what the problems are, there've been a million reviews, just get on with it.
Yeah, politicians have been failing on this for far too long. They've come on your programme and others and bandied it around and not really get over what you got over today, that there are millions of people suffering, families being hit financially, people in misery and pain, and we have got to tackle this. And I think it's a real test for the new government. We're willing, in the Liberal Democrats, to play a constructive part. You're right, we have...
You did play a constructive part in the destruction of the country, yes, thank you. You did do that.
He was literally a government minister.
You, Ed Davey, caused the very pain and suffering you are now pretending you care about. Thanks. Wonder if any of those sub-postmasters had disabled kids that they had to try and look after.
I mean, to be fair to Ed Davey, he was one of the only people who actually messaged fucking Alan Bates back. Whereas what's weird to me is that Jo Swinson was in that position. She never messaged fucking back. And Tory and Labour politicians were also in those positions, were messaged by Alan Bates and were not messaged back. And for some reason, Ed Davey, the one who actually messaged back, was one getting in the neck. Was it? I think it was Stephen Timms who was there before him when Labour were in government in 2009. And Stephen Timms never talks about it.
Stephen Timms didn't get it in the neck, he got it in the stomach. That's a joke about the fact that someone stabbed him in the stomach. That happened. I'm just saying. I'm not suggesting that's a good thing that happened. I'm just reporting a historical fact.
This right at the front of our priorities. I think the government does need to talk cross-party. We're willing and ready to go into those negotiations. We said that at the general election. But I do think there are things they need to do.
Yeah, true. You might have said that at the general election, but you were going by at 200 miles an hour on a fucking zip line at the time, so it's difficult to tell what you were saying. Who knows?
Straight away, that are actually obvious. Louise Haigh just then was talking about part of them, which is sorting out the vacancies, because whatever the long-term solution is, we're going to need more carers. I think they need to be more ambitious about that. We talked about a minimum wage for carers, for example. We need to professionalise this and give it a real status, because it is so critical. So there are things they need to do right up front now, but let's get round the table and let all parties come and talk.
And would it make a difference to you whether it did have the badge of being...
Okay, this is a creepy over-the-shoulder shot. Like, these two are planning a murder or something. This is the bit where they're in the casino and they've seen their marks, and they're going to go over and like fucking steal all their shit or something.
A royal commission, or whether it was an independent review. And I wonder, have you had a call yet from West Street saying let's get round the table?
No, we haven't had a call, Laura. But the cross-party talks could take many forms. My only concern about a royal commission, and we would back it, but we need the immediate measures first. And it mustn't be an excuse for long grassing this. It needs to happen urgently. Even the long-term reforms could happen more quickly than sometimes a Royal Commission does. For this reason, there's immediate things to be done, I think, that are no-brainers, but it's still urgent to fix it. And you can't have a 10-year plan for the NHS unless you've got a real serious plan for social care.
The reality is, though, and politicians over generations have shied away often because the cost of a better social care system in England would be billions and billions and billions of pounds. And, even in Scotland this week, where they were trying to introduce a national care service, those plans have been shelved again. This is a huge and expensive thing to do. And you've welcomed the...
Well, thankfully, we're a very rich nation. We should use those resources for the betterment of the people of the nation, shouldn't we? Or we should just let dickheads squirrel it away in the Cayman Islands forever and just watch as the country sinks beneath the shit. Literally, the waves of shit on the beach.
The extra money for health and social care the government has promised in the budget, but you've criticised the tax rises that they're using to pay for it. Aren't you being a bit hypocritical? Because you're saying you want it all, but you don't want to pay for it.
No, I think in the general election, you're aware, we had a fully funded health and social care investment, and we had taxes, not the taxes the government have put forward. And one of my concerns about the way they're proposing to pay for this through employers' national insurance contributions is going to make the problem in the NHS worse, because GPs and community pharmacists are going to have to pay this, and they're already totally stretched, but also care providers, care homes, domiciliary care agencies are going to pay it unless the government changes their minds.
But the tax rises that you said you would bring in the election came up to about 8 billion. The government's put in more than 20 billion into the NHS. So there's a big hole there that has to be filled somehow.
Well, I think there are 2 or 3 things I'd say.
Funny story, actually.
First of all,
funny story. Speaking about the Liberal Democrats and costing their potential NHS plans, one of my favourite Lib Dem stories is how in the 2019 election, £30 billion of spending in the Grey Book for their manifesto was entirely labelled under Remain bonus. It was just a number that they said that we would just get for rejoining the European Union.
Yeah, because you know the European Union is famously just gives you money, gives you loads of money.
Like, I'm not saying that tax revenues wouldn't increase if we had, better trading relationships with Europe. I'm sure it would be. It's just very funny to go, well, we're going to get all of this extra money immediately because of reversing Brexit.
But both sides do this. They live in a fantasy land. It's like the Brexit dividend. That's not a thing either. You can't just make stuff up. Well, I mean, you clearly can, and it works, unfortunately. But you shouldn't make stuff up like this. It doesn't work. Like, life is way more complex and, frankly, fucking boring than, if we rejoin, they'll just give us 90 gazillion pounds. No, they won't.
The money birds will return, Kevin.
Yeah, the magic money forest is going to sprout.
All the costs of inaction are huge. Already, your viewers and taxpayers are paying billions of pounds every year because the government isn't fixing it. Inaction is incredibly expensive, and I think that's really important.
You were saying, well, they shouldn't raise taxes in that way, but your tax rises that you set out would only raise 8 billion, whereas the government's putting in more than 20 billion to the NHS. So how would you fill that hole?
Right, let me say 2 more things.
If she's going to go on about filling fucking holes this entire interview, like, come on. Come up with a different analogy. You don't need to be this horny.
On that, as well as the expense of inaction. First of all, in our plans at the election, we talked about the huge savings that would come to the NHS, but didn't put them in our programme. And what I would say to Wes Streeting and other ministers, look at the massive savings that would come to the NHS. Take the orthodoxy of the Treasury on. The benefits for the NHS of tackling social care are huge. People not in hospital for so long, which is expensive and bad for them. People having to return hospital because the care hasn't been sorted out. These are big costs, and they're not factored in. So first of all, I put that on the table.
I mean,
secondly, I think,
like, he's not wrong, right? Bed blocking. I mean, it's a terrible phrase to use, right? But it's the kind of the common parlance on this. And it's a big problem, bed blocking, in that without space and social care to go to, people who otherwise would be discharged are taking up bed space for hospital could be used for hospital treatment right now. So freeing up all the space and social care would alleviate the problems of waiting lists in the NHS.
Yeah.
This is absolutely true, 100% true, right? But that's not going to make up for all of the money that you're not going to get into the health service by not doing all of these taxes that you're trying to pander to your high income base to not do.
Yeah.
When they start having to refund to the public sector, be it the NHS or GPs or community pharmacists or care providers, for the national insurance they've raised on it, their net revenue they've raised will be much, much less. So I think when you add all this, the costs of inaction, which are huge, the savings you could make from the NHS, and sort of the taxes that we would bring.
He's got a sort of touch of the Gordon Browns about him in that he just randomly smiles. Like,
he doesn't he?
Gordon Brown was egregious with it because it was like a tick. So he'd be talking about like some natural disaster and start smiling because he'd been told you need to smile because you look like a fucking dormant ball sack. Like you look weird, right? He's got a touch of that as well. Like, it doesn't matter what he's talking about; he just randomly smiles every like 10 to 20 seconds because that you have to, I guess. I don't know. Anyway.
to the table, like, for example, a tax on online
And
gambling.
you think that could make up the difference? It's a difference of, more than £10 million?
Well, I think if you look at this, probably absolutely we do. And, we would come as constructive as possible to these cross-party talks. We've been championing them. We bring our tax proposals and listen to others in a very open way.
But you're still waiting by the phone.
I've not been called yet, Laura.
I want to talk about also...
Why would anyone ring the Lib Dems?
Well, that's the funny thing, right? Is we were really excited about talking cross-party on this. Yeah, because otherwise you've got fuck all power.
Yeah, exactly. You're the third
Labour have
party.
Labour have a giant majority.
They don't need you. Yeah, okay.
It's a very emotive issue, but it's very much in people's minds at the moment. The concept of assisted dying. The week after next, MPs will have a vote on this. Now, your view is that we shouldn't move forward with this proposal as a country. But it's interesting because the Lib Dem party...
I'm still not entirely sure where I stand on this bill, to be honest
I
with you.
got some convincing towards supporting it recently.
Yeah.
In that one of my parents' friends who had to go through something with somebody who was terminally ill, the process of having it eked out at the end was really, really tragic and awful for both of them, right? And he supports the bill now that she's passed away. And one of the kind of safeguards is that, first of all, there's so many different hoops you have to jump through to be eligible in the first place. And of course, the big problem with these things is the coercion that's being felt to do this potentially. But being somebody who tries to coerce somebody into this carries like a decade-long prison sentence or some shit. So I think that all the potential safeguards that they have in place probably mitigate a lot of my concern. I think I still have so much apprehension that couldn't get changed later on to be used in the same way the Canadians are attacking, the poor and the homeless.
Yeah, by the way, Canada, what the fuck are you doing? Literally, what the fuck are you doing? It's demonic. Stop that shit. And secondly, yes, I'm all for, in like a kind of abstract sense, the concept of assisted dying, because I think some of the situations you hear about are grotesque, and if you can end suffering for people, that seems like the most obviously humane thing to do. But in legislation, you can't just say, well, only the really obvious cases. That's not how it works, right? You have to have a kind of a uniform
Teasing out
set
what is obvious is difficult.
Exactly. You have to have an actual tight, hopefully loophole-free, abuse-free system in place, right? And so, I'm not sure where I stand on this particular bill. I think it should be a matter of conscience, so I think it's good that it's going to be a free vote. The fact that West Streeting is against it instantly makes me think I would have to vote for it, just because fuck that guy. And look, in lieu of a strong feeling one way or the other, just being spiteful towards Wesley is enough for me. So I hope it passes.
My assumption is that his opposition to this is that he thinks it's interfering with God's plan.
Good, because any God that would create Wes Streeting deserves to be disobeyed.
True. Very true.
As a group, has voted for this as a party policy to support assisted dying. Do you find it sort of uncomfortable, perhaps, to break with your party on this? Because the vote will be a free vote. Party politics aren't meant to be involved. But your party has taken a clear position on it previously.
Well, first of all, I've made it always clear this is my personal position. It's a position I've held for many, many years. And if you look at the policy that we passed, we made it clear that...
Yeah, you've been wrong for many, many years. Well done. You've been consistently incorrect. Fantastic.
It was an issue of conscience, and there would be a free vote for all Liberal Democrat MPs. So what I'm doing is in line with that motion. But I feel strongly about this, and I hope we can have longer to debate this in Parliament, because I have a number of concerns. One of the big concerns is the psychological pressure on people who are maybe terminally or disabled or elderly, that there are...
For once, I'm actually going to be interested. I watched parliamentary debates anyway, because I'm literally...
A nerd!
I'm broken. Yeah, no, I'm broken. I will just absolutely admit it. I'm a profoundly pathetic, basic bitch nerd. Yes. And but I will actually be interested to hear the debate for once, because usually the point isn't really to debate out and tease out like the rights and wrongs of a thing. It's usually like party political wankery, which I quite enjoy because I'm very sad. Whereas this one actually will be genuinely interesting to hear the kind of philosophical perspectives and stuff on it. You know, be nice.
Agreed.
Burden on others, not the others.
Well, no, I say nice. That sounds weird because it's a very grim topic. But you know what I mean. It will be an interesting experience, I think.
Other people are putting the pressure on them, but they're putting it on themselves. And if we go down this route, I think that will be unbearable for some, and people will opt for this when they don't really want to. They're just doing it from a selfless point of view. And you know, my experience looking after my mum when I was a teenager, and I
No, this is the kind of an interesting point. I don't necessarily think it's coercion if the person themselves wishes not to be a burden. Because I've known people have said that before, that they don't want to be a burden. They'd hate for that to happen. Now, that's just the wish of the person, isn't it?
True, but like, yeah.
And how do you parse out the difference between someone who is being coerced into feeling like they're a burden and therefore take that decision, and someone who's always felt that way? Because my dad's always said this. He's very much able-bodied and healthy within reason for a man who's nearly fucking 70. Lol. He said he doesn't want to become a burden. He said if I ever get into one of those states, just fucking kill me. It's literally a thing he said several times. So like, how do you pass that out from someone who like has been coerced? I'm not entirely sure you can. There is an absolute foolproof system, but then again, there isn't for anything. Like, we don't catch every killer either. Like, it doesn't mean you shouldn't have laws against murder. You know.
I used to do the palliative care. I'd provide morphine to her. I'd put pads on her so she'd give herself electric shocks to distract her from the actual pain of her bone cancer. My experience of that and my reflection on that has been that we could do so much more on palliative care by getting that right.
But she should have to suffer through that constant pain and agony until she dies naturally, because God said so. Thanks. Very, very compassionate. You can say it in a nice tone, but you're still basically saying there's like honour in suffering, which isn't true.
I think if we got that right, got the NHS right, got the care systems right that we've been talking about, you know, I think many of the people who are worried about this would feel relieved, and I think it would take the sting out of this issue.
And there are many facets to it. It's a sensitive and a really important issue.
I honestly don't think someone in absolute crippling agony who wishes that pain to be ended would be that moved by the fact that you have increased NHS spending by 0.3%. or whatever. Like, that's not how any of that works, you fucking knob. Also, again, he's doing this religious. It's just his religious inclination is to do that. Which, again, fine. You're entitled to that opinion. But why should that be forced on everyone else?
Issue that will no doubt be talked about a lot in the next few weeks. Just finally, I'd like to ask you about something else. The Archbishop of Canterbury resigned this week after criticisms over how he'd handled allegations of abuse in the church.
Well, the thing is, all I'm saying, right, is he could always change sides and run to become Pope, because he's got the form now. Do you know what I mean? Like,
True.
He's going to have most of the votes of the fucking archbishops in Rome, because, let's be honest, they're all fucking nonces as well. So, game recognising game.
I tell you what's fucking insane, genuinely insane, was the absolute slew of celebrities lamenting this guy stepping down. And I was like, he covered up child abuse.
Yeah.
Why are you having fucking remorse and being...
Yeah, it's sad to see him go. No, it's not. I think he should be jettisoned into the fucking stratosphere, the cunt. No, what are you talking about? Why is he not in jail? He's an accessory to the worst crime possible.
Literally pop him in the trebuchet, first in the line.
Yeah. And but all these fucking melters, like, oh, it's such a shame. He was a good man. No, he wasn't. Obviously not. Otherwise, why would he be stepping down? He was too much of a good guy. That's why he stepped down, is it?
Literally, he was too good for the Church of England.
Exactly. Fucking hell. How did they go from jamming Jerusalem to noncing? When did this happen? Well, it probably was always happening, but like...
I thought it was beating. I thought it was child beating that was covered up.
Was it? Oh, well, I don't know.
No, I was pretty sure there was this guy who was beating children in
was
like Johnny Smythe or something. Was it called? I forget.
I don't know. That's a Dickens character. There's no way that's a real person.
Church. That's led to a fresh focus on the conduct of your leader in Wales, Jane Dodds. Now, an official report in 2021 found that when she was working for the church in child protection, that she had made a grave error by not pursuing a meeting to discuss a particular sexual abuse case. She's accepted that there were shortcomings in what she did.
Sexual abuse case. So what? I knew there was nonsense involved.
Okay.
There was definitely some. I've read something about that because it made me just think like, oh, so it's not just the Catholics. Okay. Look, they're all at it. Evil bastards.
Are you happy with her explanation of events, and do you have confidence in her?
Well, I think this whole issue around the Church of England is hugely serious, and we have to take it seriously. I welcome the resignation of the Archbishop. I've spoken to Jane about this. She has apologised, and she has had an incredibly career looking after children, but I've made it clear to her I think she needs to think about her responsibility on this.
So should she think about her position?
I think
Sounds like you're hinting at that.
I think she does need to reflect on this very
hang on a
carefully.
minute,
I accept that she has apologized.
I hate to be all Reddit atheist, but can we just fuck this whole thing off?
Yeah.
Genuinely. Just stop. Get no more established religion, no more fucking bishops in the House of Lords. Fuck this shit off, right?
Yeah.
If you want to have your own God you believe in your own time, absolutely, more power to you. That's absolutely fine. It being part of our statecraft, get rid.
Yeah. No,
sorry, I'm sorry.
Why are we paying taxes to... Look, I'm not a member of the Church of England. Why do I have to pay taxes for its upkeep? What's going on there? Why is the head of the Church of England the head of state? It's embarrassing. Honestly. But it won't change, yeah. Like, the Lib Dems, it was the perfect example of the kind of mealy-mouthed tinkering at the edges thing. If you remember when Prince Pegging, whatever his name is, Prince William, and Kate blah-de-blah had their first kid, and it was a girl, right? And so they changed the lines of succession rules so that it's just the firstborn now that becomes the monarch or whatever, right? And I remember the then Lib Dem leader, who I think was maybe Ming Campbell or whatever, coming out and saying like, well, it's good that we've gotten rid of this archaic rule. It's got this throwback to a medieval age. It's terrible, isn't it? And I was like, why are you stopping at just that one tiny little shred of the otherwise enormously archaic system we have? Why is it that particular piece of shit is bad? But literally the fact that she came out of the same set of balls and ovaries means that she gets to be head of state one day. That's fine, apparently. That archaic shit is absolutely fine. But you wouldn't want to be a bit sexist about it. What?
I mean, to be fair to Ming Campbell, the only reason why he said it was medieval is because he remembers what it was like.
No, to be fair, I don't want to belittle his lived experience. Yeah. Honestly, Henry VIII still owes him a tenner. Just saying.
True. Imagine what it's worth in today's money.
At least £11, I reckon. Kev needs to watch out for anti-disestablishmentarians. Nah, I said it.
Ming Campbell is still alive. Fucking hell.
He's still in the House of Lords. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still. I think I remember seeing him speak not that long ago.
He's only 83.
Fuck off! Is he only 83?
Yeah, he seemed 83 when he was leader of the.
I was about to say, there's no. You have to be. That has to be wrong. There's no fucking way he's, because that means he would have been, what, in his late 60s when he was leader of the Lib Dems. Not a chance in. Hang on, I've got to Google this. I can only see it with my own eyes. Where is I? Ming Campbell, member of the House of Lords. He is only 83. What? How are you? What the? No. Okay, Wikipedia is wrong and is lying to me.
He literally hasn't aged in 20 years.
Yeah.
He looks the same age now as he did in 2006.
Yeah. When was he leader of the Liberal Democrat? 2006. So nearly 20 years ago. So he was only in his mid-60s then. I thought he was literally at death's door.
He didn't
Fuck
seem
me.
very, connected to the public. But literally, I'm looking at pictures of him from 2006, and it looks like he hasn't aged. He really doesn't look like he's aged at all.
Yeah.
I mean, a fair play to the guy.
Well, it's a little bit like Patrick Stewart, who's looked about 60 for 50 years.
He has, hasn't he? Because wasn't it like TNG filmed in the 80s?
I
Or
think
90s.
it started there. But if you go back, he played Lenin when he in like the 70s. Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, like he's been an old man for a very long time. Like,
Yeah,
fair
the
play. He's made
first-
it work for him. God bless him.
Yeah, first series of TNG was 1987.
There you go. Fuck me. Oh my god,
Yeah.
that series is as old as me. No way. That's mad.
Yeah, Patrick Stewart is 84.
How the fuck is Patrick Stewart older than Ming Campbell? My fucking...
How is he older than Ming Campbell?
The fabric of reality is melting around me. I don't... Nothing up is down. Cats marrying dogs. It's it. Oh my god. That's mental.
Yeah, so it was
But this is
Lenin and
such-
Fall of Eagles, which is 1974.
And look, it's not like Lenin as a very young man. Look, he's a
No, exactly.
fucking
I mean, he only
hell.
was what back in the Russian SDLP.
Yeah, so we're talking like he was playing like a 50-year-old
Oh.
dude 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Fuck me. Oh, that's mental. Oh yeah,
Don't trust the liberals; they will betray you.
true. Classic clip.
Such a serious issue. So I think she does need to think about what else she may need to do.
That sounds like code for she should resign.
I want Jane to reflect on this. I have spoken to her. I've made my feelings really clear to her about what I think she should do, and I think she's reflecting. I hope she does.
Okay, Sir Ed, thank you very much. It's always great to have you with us.
So she should fucking resign then. Like, why can't politicians ever just say, fuck her off? She's obviously wrong then. Like, just speak like a normal person would. Even if you have to posh it up a bit. Say it like it actually is. Say the thing you believe. It's not even as if you're in the government and it matters. Just fucking say it.
On a Sunday and speaking about an issue that you've campaigned so hard on. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Now, remember, as ever, we want to know what you think. You can send us an email, kunstberg@bbc.co.uk, or if you're a social media kind of person, you can use the hashtag BBC Laura Kay. It is all there on the screen for you now, including our WhatsApp number, and we will try and share some of your comments at the end of the programme, or indeed in our newsletter on Thursday. Let's then get back.
This is like the second Green Party person that's been on the BBC this week.
Multiple Green Party representatives. What's going on?
What is also? I haven't heard a Reform person. Are they actually being like sensible for once ever? Nigel Farage hasn't been given a seat on every fucking TV show this week. Although, did you see he had to boast about how he was in Clacton over the weekend?
Yeah, literally. It's just like
that's
my,
not-
the
That's not the flex you think it is, Nigel. Most MPs don't need to prove that they were in their constituency.
Yeah, I believe that the T-shirt talking about my love of Clacton is explained by what's written on my T-shirt.
True.
Back to the panel. Now, social care. Carla, have the Greens been approached? Because the Lib Dems who've campaigned on this say they haven't been approached on social care. Have you heard anything from the government?
Not that I'm aware of. Our lead on health and social care is my co-leader, Adrian, rather than myself. But as far as I know, no, they haven't been in touch yet.
And Dominic, why is it so difficult? Because the Conservatives tried umpteen times to reform social care and then either ditched the plans, changed the plans, realised they'd be unpopular. Is that what it's about? It's just too difficult?
Do you know, I actually think there's a widespread cross-party agreement that this must be done. One of the big challenges is that it requires upfront investment to yield a longer-term gain, not just in social care, but actually savings for the NHS. And that is the conundrum that governments always grapple with. Health secretaries want to do it. Chancellors tend to be a bit more reticent. And that's why ultimately it will need Keir Starmer to drive that forward.
Do you think that there is merit, though, in the idea?
Well, it's not happening then. If it requires any kind of, like, I don't know, backbone or gumption or ability, Keir Starmer is not your man.
No,
working
quite.
cross-party, because also we've heard that before, because what happens is parties get together, they get round the table, and then when the rubber hits the road, you might be getting close to, I don't know, an election, and then no party wants to be the one that says, okay, that means a penny or two on your income tax.
There's always a risk of that, and the idea that something so contentious would be immune from the accountability and the party politics, I think, is fanciful. On the other hand, I think if any government actually came forward and said, we're going to do this.
Okay, but then why have an independent Bank of England setting interest rates? Surely that's enormously controversial and meaningful and is beyond parliamentary even scrutiny, let alone control. So why is that okay? Why is there a ironclad consensus across Westminster that that's just normal? Because last time I checked, I hadn't voted for my member of the Monetary Policy Committee, so like, but yet they control our financial destiny. Not
Literally,
very
I mean,
much democracy.
I mean, literally, that's what happened to Liz Truss, right? Bank of England start quantitative tightening on the weekend of the fiscal event, and literally nothing she could do about it. Nothing she could do.
I mean, to be fair, her policies were dog shit as well.
I mean, obviously it's true, and if you're going to start doing massive change to fiscal policy, maybe check with the Bank of England whether or not they're planning on doing quantitative tightening that weekend. That's kind of your job.
You'd think they'd put just a cursory "Dear colleagues" email around, you know what I mean? Maybe drop them a line, just
go or Andy Bailey, right? Mate, any chance of any quantitative tightening any time in the next 48 hours?
Yeah, but they went, nah, it'd be fine. We'll wing it. It'll be fine, yeah.
Don't need to check with the pension funds. I'm sure everything's fine over there.
Yep. We're good. I think she was mainly into the anal sex at the time. I can't see Kwasi Kwarteng and not think about him absolutely blowing her back out. I can't do it. I'm sorry. I'm only human.
It also puts the other parties who've talked a good game in a tight spot. But as ever, and it comes back to the point we were discussing earlier in the show, it needs vision, leadership, plan, and you've just got to grapple with it and take it forward.
Tim, what are the politics of this right now, do you think, at the top of government?
Well, look, I think, as ever, as Dominic says, there's a row between the Department of Health and the Treasury, and the Treasury is not very good at doing dynamic modelling that looks forward and says, well, if we do this now, we might get a gain down the line. But I think, I slightly disagree with Dom in terms of the party politics. I think this needs to be taken out, at least immediately out of party politics. I mean, you look at what happened in the past. In the last Labour government, Andy Burnham had a plan. The Tories called it a death tax. In the 2017 general election, Theresa May had a plan. Labour called it a dementia tax. My new book has the row between Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak over this. Johnson...
Has he got a new book? Really? Wow.
Wow. Never heard about that.
Wow. It's not like that was literally trailed by the presumably friend and host of this show. And this is surreptitious product placement, directly in contravention of the rules of the BBC. No, it'd be fine.
Wanted to do it, Sunak wouldn't pay for it. So some kind of royal commission, as long as it's time limited and quick and everybody buys into it, if they all buy in, they can't then just sort of renege and run away. But if you just sit politicians around a table, they're going to find a way of briefing against the others.
Surely not. Carla?
And I think it's about being brave. I credit where it's due, and us Greens have always been clear that we will work with the Labour government where we agree. I think the increase in funding for the NHS that was announced in the budget was really positive, but we need that corresponding investment in social care, because otherwise, as Ed Davies said, you have the problem of people being stuck in hospital longer than they need to be, which is bad for their health and bad for the NHS's budget. So those two, the health investment and the social care investment, need to go hand in hand. That was what was in our manifesto. Labour's announcement on funding for the NHS was actually pretty close to what we were saying. I was surprised how high it was. but we need that matching social care investment.
And Dominic, would you say to your colleagues now, under the Conservative Party, under new management, would you tell them actually?
See, it's, what's actually really important, and it seems odd, but literally just having basic progressive arguments enter into this sphere.
Exactly.
Just
100%.
having some pushback against the one opinion you're allowed in Westminster, and having it in places like Question Time, like this programme, like on Radio 4, where the Greens occasionally have a person on. That's really important, because most people only take like a cursory glance of things anyway, but if they happen to flick it on and they hear a thing and they go, oh, that's good, I agree with that, or whatever, just having that as like an option now in a way that it wouldn't have been until Corbyn, really. Like for 20 years, there basically wasn't an option for a progressive anything. And now they're
Caroline Lucas. That was it. It was just Caroline Lucas. She was the only one.
Honestly, yeah, we should. I think we owe a debt of gratitude to her for her incredible service. Plugging away on her own for 20 years. Amazing.
Exactly. And so, I think you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. This is important. And I think this is why that I saw loads of leftists saying, there's no point back in the Green Party, right? First of all, there was loads of purity testing, like they're not perfect because they've changed their position on NATO to be less critical. And I'm just like, whatever. They're trying to win seats in an election. And it's shown it's really important, right? Having those 4 seats rather than that 1 seat has massively amplified the amount of mainstream attention and airtime that they've managed to be able to get on things like the BBC. Whereas, you could be on LBC's Cross Question, you can be on, the Jeremy Vine show, right? But only a handful of people who've got nothing better to do are watching that, namely us. Whereas when it's the BBC, when it is the state broadcaster, which is, 70% of the UK watch at least some of the BBC or engage with the BBC at least somewhat for their news output or to look at current events, whereas they don't do that anywhere near as much for any of the other networks. That's a huge amount of perceived legitimacy that you wouldn't otherwise be getting.
Yeah.
So any leftist who tries to tell you that you shouldn't be engaging with at least some amount of electoral politics, now obviously I am not an electoral politics liberal. I think you should be engaging in politics in every aspect, for community engagement and trade unions and community groups and through organizations, etc., right? But electoral politics will always be a part of that. And that is how we get whatever small soapbox that we can find to be able to make progressive arguments on policy to counteract what would be an entirely liberal outlook from the Labour Party, who would be, without us, the only perceived left-wing voice within the broader media ecosphere. And if it's just Labour being seen as the left, essentially parroting right-wing talking points, everybody will completely will take it as received wisdom that the right wing is correct in everything.
Yeah. Part of the way in which Nigel Farage has been successful is that he's gotten the media to give him these kind of platforms consistently. And he just puts that messaging over. And that's all he needs to do. Right? They've played into his hands completely. Why not use that same strategy, but for good rather than evil?
100%. Absolutely.
If we've got the opportunity to, put good messaging out there. Win support. And we've seen that to a degree. Like, the Green Party just plugging away for a very long time and doing the hard yards is starting to actually bear fruit now. They've become a legitimate political force. They're still not massive, let's not pretend they were. But you've got to bear in mind, Nigel Farage didn't have a single seat in Parliament and yet pulled off one of the biggest political coups in recent British history. In Brexit.
Mm-hmm.
He got what he wanted out of the situation. And the Green Party are polling better than UKIP did at points as well. We'll have to wait and see if that translates parliamentary-wise and whether they necessarily, if they became a bigger party, whether they would begin to sell out or whatever. Who knows? Westminster does weird things to people. But for now, it's a genuinely positive force, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And the thing is, even if we don't win huge amounts of seats, right, sapping away at Labour's base will force them to become more progressive, to stop people from leaving. That's exactly what happened with the opposite with UKIP, right? Yep. UKIP didn't really win over too many Conservative voters. It pulled from loads of different sides, right? But their specific anti-EU stance was pulling membership was pulling base away from the Conservative Party.
Literally the only reason that the Brexit referendum happened was because David Cameron was basically forced into it because he was losing support to UKIP. That's it. He had to. He basically forced his hand to have to do a thing he desperately didn't want to have to do because he knew there was a chance he could fucking lose. You know, he avoided a narrow breaking up of the country with Scottish referendum, right? Nearly fucking Gordon Brown had to save his skin there. The political opportunist cunt that Cameron is, and he thought he could get away with the same fucking trick, and it backfired and it's fucked everyone. Dickhead.
Exactly. And we're in the far more positive position in the Green Party than Reform, in that our voters, most of the people who are our core potential voter base that we're looking to tap into, they're all in very specific seats. They're all in there's very specific demographics in certain areas of the country. They're not spread around like broadly around the coast and in the north and in these constituencies and in rural areas. Like Reform, you can have bits and pieces of support, right? Our base, our natural potential base that we want to tap into, it's urban, it's millennial, it's progressive, it's in the city, it's in university towns, right? Like, there is a real base to tap into, and if we become the where the Corbyn movement was, if we find our base where the Corbyn movement did all those years ago, right, then it'll be far easier for us to be able to win seats in the same way that Reform UK have found it very difficult to.
Yes, and the voting demographic for the Green Party aren't about to die, so that's another advantage you got, you know.
Be the bigger person, get involved in this, back what the government might look at.
Yeah, I mean, you can't give a blank check, and the devil will always be in the detail. And there's some really difficult issues about the balance between user pays and taxpayer underwriting the long-term dementia risk. But I think, the proposals that have come forward from the Blair years through to the Sunak years have always looked broadly in the right place. At some point, you've got to drive it forward and grapple with it.
Now, in terms of what's happening now in the world, we've seen terrible attacks in Ukraine again overnight. We heard President Zelensky yesterday say he actually thought under President Trump the war could come to an end. What do you think is going on, with your hat as a...
Are you just going to repeat that like he meant that as a positive? Like he meant that as entirely like Trump is going to do a good thing by stopping all of this? No. He's about to sell them out, i.e. they're going to lose the war or have to, submit to some absolutely humiliating, massive loss of land. Come on. This is not, again, during the election she had to do a journalism and now she's back to her old self.
Yeah.
The former Foreign Secretary.
Well, we're over 2 years into this awful conflict.
Is this the former Foreign Secretary that was sunning his little trotters whilst Afghanistan was up in flames? Literally had people falling from fucking planes?
Can you imagine having this guy here talking about foreign policy?
Yeah, he doesn't know. He doesn't know anything. What?
Yeah.
The only one that would be worse would possibly be Boris Johnson, whose words were literally used in a court case to help convict a British person in Iran.
Fucking hell. Why does anyone support the Conservatives?
I don't know. I do not fucking know.
I think there is...
Why?
They're comically inept. They're really
terrible.
Are.
Genuinely, honestly, I mean, we were both saying this in the run up to the election, right? If you're an actual Conservative, why are you not voting Reform? Why are you voting for? Because at least Reform UK, they're not proven terrible at literally every single aspect of governance, right? You might as well at least give them a go. It can't be any worse than the Conservative Party being conservative and being shit at governance, right?
Yeah.
Why are you voting Tory? It makes no sense.
I don't know why anyone would. I don't know.
Deadlock on the battlefield strategically, and I think there's a lot of strategic ambiguity in terms of the diplomatic support, both on the European side, divisions as to how much a deal should be done, certainly in terms of donor fatigue, and of course people are waiting to see what a new President Trump will do about it.
And you worked with the first Trump administration. I think we've got some pictures actually of you with the President, and Mike Pompeo would have been your opposite number, I believe, during that era.
Wow, just a cavalcade of wankers.
Yeah. Was Erdogan in there as well?
Erdogan's
That's
there,
good.
and he's not even the worst person. Imagine being in a room with Erdogan and he's not the worst person there.
He's like the best person there. He's literally the best person out of the four of them.
Yeah, that's basically true, and he's a fucking monster.
He's an absolute monster. He's like trying to ethnically cleanse Eastern Turkey of fucking Kurds.
Yeah.
There are so many different conflicting signals that come out, not just from him, but from his appointees, the people around him. What's your instinct about
Why was this Malta representing the UK? Why wasn't the Prime Minister there? If Trump was there and fucking Erdogan was there, where the fuck was Johnson? Or May, or whoever the fuck was who knows who the fuck Prime Minister was then? Like,
I mean, Boris Johnson probably measuring for his wallpaper.
Probably. Or getting head is also a possibility.
kind of course that they really want to chart here?
Well, it's difficult. They want to see more burden sharing from Europeans. They think that they shouldn't be taking a blank check for the umbrella of military security in Europe when they also want to be focusing on China and the challenges in...
Okay, if you don't want to pay for it, then you don't get to run us. That was the sort of deal, wasn't it? A really cocked and pathetic deal, but basically you cover the costs for it and you get to fuck us. We get to be like the kind of a group of side chicks for America, basically.
Basically.
in Asia.
Bluffers.
On the other hand, there'll be acute...
And, you know, we're not giving up the good for free. Just saying.
aware, Mike Pompeo was very strong on this under the previous administration, about the moral hazard of letting Putin win. And I think the new president will be very conscious of those two dilemmas and how to reconcile them.
Tim, what's your sense of where this might go? I mean, you know, all
You know what'd be really
journalists,
funny,
everybody's
right?
been-
If Dominic Raab is right and that Mike Pompeo is like really set on actually ensuring that you can't let Putin win, and then if somehow like Donald Trump listens to Mike Pompeo again, it would be really fucking funny if Trump just immediately changes tag, goes, yet more American money to Ukraine, we're not going to block it anymore. It'll be incredibly funny watching his supporters get really pissed off.
Well, I mean, the Leopards Eating People's Faces party, the Arab Americans who voted for him are now really confused that he's put like ultra genocidal freaks in his cabinet. What do you expect? What did you expect? What was his first cabinet like? Oh, it was filled with genocidal freaks. Yeah. That's who he is. What the fuck?
you know, generating huge amounts of news and commentary, trying to look for clues about where it might go next. But what's your sense?
Well, I was in Washington a couple of weeks ago, just the week before the US election, and I met there with a lot of diplomats, including people who sort of represent Zelensky in Washington. I was pleasantly surprised. The people I was talking to there seemed to think that in the conversation Trump had personally had with Zelensky, he sounded a lot more sympathetic to the Ukrainian cause than is widely believed, but that he's got to keep his party happy and put Vladimir Putin on the spot. Clearly, he plans to pick up the phone to Putin and try and do a deal. Zelensky's making noises that, as long as it's fair, would be acceptable. And I think we don't yet know exactly what that administration is going to do, but I think Trump is not quite as against Kyiv as has been widely perceived.
And Carla, what do you make of the UK's role here? You know, because the political support in this country has been pretty rock solid for President Zelensky, but if America takes a different tack, that gets awkward, doesn't it?
It does, and I think a lot of people are very worried about what President-elect Trump means for the world, including for Ukraine. And I think this is a time when we need to really think carefully about where our values overlap, and I think it's a time to build stronger relationships with Europe.
Now, Dominic, one of the aspects of all of this
I mean,
is how long Russia
what
can
I would have
sustain
done-
the war.
I would immediately have said, we're always worried about what Trump's approach is to Ukraine. But also, I don't know, the fucking guy he's put in charge who wants Israel to annex the fucking West Bank.
Yep.
Maybe that's also kind of also as important as, you know, Putin wanting to annex the Donbass. Pretty dangerous, right? Israel annexing the West Bank, also equally dangerous, because, you know, Putin wants to take the Donbass and wants to occupy the people who already live there because they're Russian speakers, right? Whereas Israel wants to fucking ethnically cleanse it.
But have
The
you
West Bank.
considered the dynamic that the Ukrainians are, for the time being, considered white enough, whereas the Palestinians are not, and that is literally the way in which Western governments work. White people matter, and not white people don't.
True.
And again, for politically convenience sake, Ukrainians are now considered white, for the time being. Like it's white with an asterisk. You know what I mean?
What's going on in the Russian economy. Now, you're, as a former cabinet minister, you're now involved in the World Gold Council, and there's a really interesting set of findings about how some of Putin's cronies are...
World Gold Council. I mean, could you sound more like robber barons or something?
I mean, the World Gold Council is just a fucking lobbying industry. All it is a lobbying industry. There's an excellent video by Folding Ideas about a documentary they did with Idris Elba.
Oh, nice.
Where there's so much, it's really, really interesting just how much goes on in it. I highly recommend the video essay. But what it is it's just a video that they've put out to try and get people to invest in gold, because of course at a time of depreciating currency, gold is seen as an investment, and of course the more people see it as an investment because of depreciating currency, the more its perceived value will rise as demand increases, as supply stays static. Of course, the more demand there is, the more money gets put into venture capital, that gets put into the gargantuan amounts of mining equipment needed to continue to extract gold to sell on the open market, right? The fluctuating price of gold can make these incredibly expensive gold mining companies solvent or in the red based on very small fluctuations in price, right? So the World Gold Council is this lobbying industry that constantly pumps out pro-gold propaganda to incentivize demand into the product, to keep all of the people who they lobby for, which is these extraction companies, these mining companies, to keep them continually solvent, because without the demand they won't be there. And of course they just hired Idris Elba to do this weirdo documentary which is ostensibly about the history of gold, and all it is just like padding for them to try and get people to buy gold.
Honestly, Idris Elba would appear in anything. He will just appear, like he would appear in a pro-genocide film if the check clears. He doesn't give a he used to do artistically worthwhile things and appear in good stuff, and now he's just doing adverts for Barclays. He doesn't give a, he's checked out of any artistic integrity whatsoever.
I mean, absolutely. But again, really, really genuinely want to recommend that video essay. It's excellent. And again, it just talks about corporate capture and the ways in which the industries and lobbyist organizations work and how they try and whitewash their crimes. Really, really good video.
Paying their way. Tell us about the findings.
Well, I've been looking at the artisanal gold sector, about 20% of gold production globally. Poor, enterprising, very vulnerable.
Literally, right. They're talking about all of them. They have this conversation about the gold mine, the gold industry, right? Instantly point to somebody working fucking hand to mouth, absolutely fucking trawling for gold in some country in the global south. This doesn't seem very aspirational. Seems exploitative to me.
Yeah, I mean, almost as if they're kind of little better than slaves at that point. They're just desperate poverty. You're a monster for supporting this system, mate. You know, just saying. He doesn't look very happy. He might have just been having a bad day, though. You know.
True.
Miners around the world, preyed on, pillaged, plundered by all sorts of nefarious groups from Islamic State and the Sahel. But most prolific...
But not by Western governments. They're not at all that description.
No! Heaven forfend! We might impugn Western governments.
We've never raided anyone's shit. Do not look in our museums. We have not raided anyone's shit ever. Do not look at Fort Knox or the Bank of England. We do not have your shit here.
Yeah, we have not applied for any. We've not applied for any contractual arrangements with the Congolese government to oversee mining operations to be able to make use of their precious metals. How dare you? How dare you suggest such a thing?
Yeah, it's not like the richest man in the world literally said we can coup whoever we like because he wants the lithium mines. No.
It's especially funny since he is rich because of his dad's Zambian emerald mine.
Exactly. Old habits die hard. You know.
You can take the
He's
you
the
can
family.
take the you can take the man out of the Afrikaner, but you can't take the Afrikaner out of the man.
True. Honestly, white Africans, you can't trust them. You just fucking can't. I'm sorry. Whether it's Elon Musk or fucking Kevin Peterson, the scum. All of them.
Oh well, you leave Jonathan Trott alone.
Jonathan Trott allowed because he played for Warwickshire. That's all though. That's it. Just him.
And because of that century in 2009.
Absolute legend. And you know he took 2 catches in his pocket in his career?
I didn't know that. I didn't know
did.
that. And he also was the mentor for the Afghanistan cricket team.
Good lad. Solid work.
It's cool.
Anyway.
The group. And since the invasion of Iraq, not only have they murdered, tortured, subjected to forced labour, huge number of these artisanal miners bad on moral grounds, but that has rendered something like $2.5 billion worth of illicit profits, all going back into the war machine, tilting the balance on the battlefield.
You know what? A good question in chat. Are white Africans as bad as Argentinians with German last names?
Oh!
Now we are
That's a tough
talking.
one.
Now we are talking.
Tough one. That's a tough one.
Someone called like Miguel Bustos Schultzman. You need to check what their granddad was fucking up to. You know what I mean? Just saying. There's a dark past there. Skeletons in that family closet. Anyway, yeah, no, they're all fucking awful.
Probably skeletons under the family's floorboards as well.
Almost certainly, yes.
Of Ukraine. And I think the question is not just the humanitarian plight of these artisanal miners, as compelling as that is, but the material security threat that allowing these illicit flows to continue represents.
So Wagner Group, which is a really important part of the Russian war machine, is being funded by illicit gold mining right around the world.
Absolutely, and we've known about this. They've been active in Nagorno-Karabakh, in Libya, but the scale of it is unprecedented. And again, if you think about donor fatigue, and we've talked about whether the Europeans, whether
I
a new
find
Trump
it very
administration wants to
difficult
stump
for
up
these
cash.
to listen to these fucking imperialist ghouls going on about any of this, because I'm sure it's true to an extent. I'm sure Wagner are, have illicit streams of revenue and all the rest of it. But like, motherfucker, we gave weapons that ended up in the hands of ISIS. Western governments did this. Western governments have armed some of the most egregiously evil people ever.
But literally, there's an incredible moment when Ryan Grimm is debating Emily Jasinski about Western interventionism, right? And they're talking about well, I'm glad I'm going. Well, clearly it's better for you have the American governments there than the Taliban. And Ryan Grimm just goes, well, you just wait until I tell you who funded the Taliban.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
This is just
land of the free with the. It struck me when I was watching a thing the other day and the American anthem came on. And you're like, land of the free with the biggest fucking prison industrial complex that's ever existed, and home of the brave, where we literally fund death squads on every continent on the planet.
Yeah.
To do our bidding,
Absolutely.
because heaven forbid Coca-Cola only makes 600 gazillion pounds rather than 700. Like it's awful.
Yeah, like never Google where the phrase "banana republic" comes from.
Yeah. Or there was
Also,
the School of the Americas as well, where they literally train people in how to insert rectovaginally rodents into people in order to torture trade unionists and such.
Excellent, love, good, love America, Good. Just the land of the free, home of the brave, absolutely, 100%. Also, interesting that Ryan Grimm and Emily Jasinski clip is also him explaining to her that actually no, it was the Soviet Union that was liberating Germany.
Well, yeah, basically, yeah. To a degree, yeah, pretty much.
I mean, it was basically Britain. It was Britain and the Soviet Union. We did that. Americans gave us some weapons to do it with, but it was mostly the British and the Soviet Union.
To be honest with you, the Soviet Union already had that shit in hand. We went on so that they wouldn't get like a communist France and Denmark and bits of Germany. Like, basically, meet them as far east as possible to stop the communoids. That's it. Like it was the tide had turned on the Eastern Front, they were going to lose.
Yeah.
One of the things we ought to be doing is making sure, through secondary sanctions, through proper checks in terms of the laundering of this money, that they're not being able to launder billions of dollars from the...
Can we ask which banks are laundering this money for them? Would it be Western banks? Because they literally keep being found out all the fucking time. And then they get fined a pittance, which is literally like 10% of the overall profit they made on the deals. So therefore, there's literally no financial disincentive for them to continue the laundering of money for terrorists. Again, all of it comes back to Western greed. Almost every problem on Earth comes back to that. Not exclusively.
It's how the world works.
Not exclusively.
That is how the world works.
There's some greedy bastards in the global south too, be under no illusion. But it all comes back to some fuckery that either a European or a North American did.
It's true.
These poor communities, robbing the nations blind, and then putting it back into the war machine in Ukraine.
But some of our viewers might say that when you were a Conservative minister, actually there weren't enough tough sanctions on Russia, and also the Conservative Party over the years did take some money from Russian donors. So it was the...
Did take some money is a very interesting way of putting that. Has been bought and paid for, lock, stock and barrel, by Russia.
You put a son of an ex-KGB agent in the fucking House of Lords.
Yeah. Literally, like you might as well just be called, like, I don't know, the Conservative Russian Unionist Party. Like, you're a joke, a farce indeed.
Is the UK somehow also been complicit in not doing enough here?
I think actually the UK has very proudly been at the forefront of applying sanctions, but I think there has been a gap of a certain porous element to this gold laundering that has gone on. And we, you know, I make absolutely no apologies saying, look, as the scale of that becomes clearer, as the war in Ukraine hangs in the balance, we absolutely must make sure that back door is locked.
And Carla, just at the end of the programme, we're going to talk a bit about what's been happening with COP, because the environmental side of what's happening in the war in Ukraine is also...
Okay, it sounded like she said what's happening with cock. It did. It sounded like that's what she'd said. I know she means cop, but like, it would also be very funny if they just started talking about cock for literally no reason. Why not?
Enormous, but I just wonder what you made of what Dominic's just told us about there.
Well, I think, Laura, you were right to highlight the importance of sanctions in this. I think there is
It
argument.
would also be very funny if Britain flew 400 people out to Armenia for cock. I'm just saying that as well. Like, I'm not suggesting it would be a good use of taxpayers' money, but I've heard of worse. So,
more that the UK and EU could be doing on that. I think this story also highlights that environmental degradation, including breaking environmental laws, human rights abuses and corruption so often go hand in hand. We see that with the illegal drug trade, with tobacco, as well as with gold. And I think, and in much of the global south, in fact, our sister parties, Green parties in places like Africa, the Green Party is often seen as the anti-corruption party as well because of how much they're entangled. I think that's a sign of how important it is to tackle them together.
notably, the Green Party in America are not seen in that way and are not affiliated with virtually any other Green Party on Earth.
Weird, that.
Very strange. Again, apropos of the being bought by Russia thing.
Yeah, like they definitely. Yeah, there was definitely no instance where they were literally having fucking dinner together at any point. No, never happened. No. Never happened. Wasn't literally invited to like some like anniversary of Russia today.
Yeah, my favourite response when I've mentioned this before on social media is people being like, "Well, you don't criticise Hillary Clinton for meeting with Putin," and you're like, "Motherfucker, she was Secretary of State." What do you mean? Like, they weren't having a chin wag. This was a diplomatic, political, international relations thing. Like, she's like a grifter who appears every 4 years to run for president. That's it. She has no business, being with Putin. She's not a representative of the American government at all.
I mean, to be fair to Jill Stein, right? To be fair to her, she managed to get a fucking ex-Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan to endorse a Jewish woman to be president of the United States.
That is, I mean,
very impressive.
We live in odd times, to be sure. Have you heard Jill Stein's album? Fuck off, does she have an album?
Is that an album?
Oh, Phantom of Black, please send me the thing. I need to hear this. Hang on, what kind of genre do you think she does? I'm thinking like Enya. I'm getting Enya vibes.
World music, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Some dumb shit. Although it would be very fun if it was like freak out Rastafarian funk. That I'd be down for.
Follow the money. We'll be back with the three of you at the end of the programme. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Kemi Badenoch, the brand new Conservative leader, was with us. She wants to win back your support. She's having a good look under the bonnet of what went wrong for the Conservative Party in the election. And
So she sent an example of what went wrong with the Conservative Party to talk to us tonight. Yay!
Shadow Home Secretary is a new member of her top team, Chris Philp. Welcome. It's good to have you with us on a Sunday again. Now, let's talk about your brief, because it's interesting. You were in the Home Office for a while before when you were in government, and now you're the Shadow Home Secretary. But when you left office in July, one poll showed more than 70% of the public thought the Tories had handled crime badly. So how do you propose to win back the public's trust?
Well, I think first of all, it's worth remembering that when we left office, we had record ever numbers of police officers and crime overall has been consistently falling. And we should, I think, remind ourselves and everybody else about that. But I think we clearly need to go further. What we introduced in office was this concept the police should always, not sometimes, but always investigate every single crime where there is a line of inquiry. So we need to make sure the new government actually hold the police to account for delivering that. We got that agreement in office. It now needs to be delivered. There are also enormous advances that can be made using technology, things like artificial intelligence, things like
Oh my God, it's like we're streeting.
autonomous drones,
Yeah.
things like live facial recognition. Which
Okay, I've tracked it down. Jill Stein, she's in a band with a dude, and it's called Somebody's Sister. And they've got one album called Circuits to the Sun, and I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, awful from the couple of tracks I've just sampled there. And it's like coffee table rock, I guess. Like, just rubbish.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take your word for it. What's interesting is actually Chris Philp is right. Crime has been consistently coming down. Like the only type of crime that's really on the rise is fraud. Fraud cases have really increased in recent times because they're taking advantage of the extra amount of internet that's being used by boomers and older people post-pandemic when everyone was forced on the internet, basically, and also taking advantage of the technological naivety of Zoomers who have only interacted with the internet and through those technology through apps, right, through the dumbed-down iPhone-style technology of the 2010s and onwards. Whereas obviously the digital natives, like millennials, we grew up using fucking dial-up and that shit, right? We've been having to deal with the nuts and bolts of PCs our entire lives, right? So we're all battle-hardened in the world of the internet. But when your only interaction with the internet is having only ever known the ways, the simplified ways in which it's been made incredibly user-friendly, you don't have that same level of education. So Zoomers are really susceptible to fraud. That's why it's on the rise. But other kinds of crime are going down. But that's not just in conservative controlled areas, right? For all of the Conservative Party's scaremongering about how the rest of England would end up being like London if you put Labour in charge of the country. Well, crime is also going down in London as well.
Yeah.
which will enable the police to catch a lot more criminals. So I'd like to see that being done as well.
But in terms of your record, I mean, you mentioned there you had a record number of police officers. That was true, but only after they had fallen. That was something that you sort of rectified in office, and you presided over a fall before that.
And it's still lower per capita.
The finishing point was still...
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Again, you haven't gone... You're not at replacement. You're not even breaking even as where it was.
Yeah, you may have
higher.
You may have a higher number nominally, a nominally higher number, but do you have a higher per capita? No.
Than in 2010.
Yeah,
and I can only speak for my time in office, and as police minister, I delivered record police numbers.
But when it comes also to to the levels of crime, the rate of reported crimes being solved had fallen for a decade, and very clearly from our inbox, from our viewers, and from a lot of public polling, many of the public thought you'd done a bad job on crime and the country had become less safe. So how do you get people's trust back beyond talking about, the use of more technology? Because didn't something more fundamental get broken here? People's trust in you.
Well, just to, again, overall crime levels did fall very considerably, but you're right, not enough crimes were being solved. So that's why I challenged the police, or asked the police, required the police a few months ago to give a commitment to always, not sometimes, but always investigate all crimes where there are reasonable lines of inquiry. And we started seeing those figures beginning to turn. And if the new government continue with that policy, then I think we'll see the trend improve. But I'll be holding them to account to make sure they continue with those policies. And you mentioned technology sort of slightly dismissively, but actually technology can help the police catch a lot more criminals. We've seen it in Croydon Town Centre, my own borough, where...
We're going to see AI police, aren't we? We're going to have to deal with AI police. I don't know what that means right now, but it's going to happen. We're going to have fucking Elon Musk doing AI police, and I'm going to have to do things that are terms of service. I'm going to have to.
Oh, yeah, at least the assisted dying bill's coming up, Kev. Maybe it's a good. We relieve ourselves of this shit.
Yeah, the suicide booths can't come quick enough in Minecraft.
Live facial recognition has caught 200 criminals, including a man wanted for a double rape, in recent months. Those are 200 criminals who would not otherwise have been caught.
I just wonder, though, what you think it is went wrong, that sort of contract between the public and its government. People, polling suggests, we know that from the election result, we know it from our inbox. Ask you again, what do you think went wrong between people's trust in you to keep them safe and what the government had been doing?
Well, I think there was a time when the
fucking
police became a
press scaremongering, wasn't it? Right? It was just Daily Mail talking about how immigrants are going to eat your cat. Well, literally, I mean, people saying it was ridiculous that Trump's campaign were making that shit up, right? It's just standard fare for the Daily Mail, Muslim men are going to come here. Asylum seekers are going to eat your girlfriend's toes, right? Like, that's the kind of dumb shit that you would be fed from the shit pipe, from the absolute kind of the fucking effluent flowing out of the Daily Mail and the Express and the Sun and all that kind of shit, right? Because, as I said, Crystal was right. Crime has literally been falling the entirety of the time. If crime is at, it's low crime. So people trying to say the Tories have failed on crime, like, that's just, it's fundamentally not the case, right? But that also, obviously, of course, I think that's a material condition outside of policy that's had an effect here, because it's happened in places not run by the Conservatives as well. It's been falling basically everywhere. But people's perception is that they failed on crime. And the only thing that makes sense to me is that it's because of scaremongering about asylum seekers.
That's the point. Which is producing more shit and pumping it out? The Daily Mail or the water companies?
It's tough competition, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's a highly competitive market, yeah.
a bit distracted from some of the basic activities they should focus on. First and foremost, the police are there to catch criminals. And what I wanted to do when I was police minister, so I started a couple of years ago, is to get the police to really get back to basics, to focus on the fundamentals, having zero tolerance for crime, including things like antisocial behaviour, taking nitrous oxide, crime, criminal damage, those kind of lower level crimes, because if you allow those to happen, it creates...
Yeah, broken windows, the failed Conservative idea that hasn't worked anywhere ever. Yeah, thanks.
Exactly, that's, again, is that also another thing that the press have been trying to hammer home at the failure of policing and that crime is a real problem, is that they want to make a political point that the police have gone woke.
Yeah.
We can't solve crimes because of woke, when that's just not true. Like, obviously the police, the problem with the police is not that they're not solving crimes. The big problem with the police is that it's full of fucking rapists. Like, like people like legitimately internally called Bastard Dave not having been held to account before now is obviously a huge problem. That's a huge problem. But they want to say, well, they failed on police because the police are too busy dancing at pride parades. And I'm just like, we don't want them with the pride parades either, actually, thanks.
Yeah.
serious crime can take
But you
place.
say they've been distracted. I mean, the police, why do you think they were distracted? Because the police were, doing the bidding with operational independence, but the police are operating in an environment where there were Conservative governments. What were they
Well,
distracted
look, I can
by?
only speak for my own time as police minister in the last 2 years.
Well, you're also
And-
speaking as a
and what
Conservative rather than, you can't
well,
pick and choose, just
what
say,
I-
I'm only going to talk about those 2 years when I was doing that particular job.
The 2 years when I was doing that job, I delivered record police numbers and asked the police to focus relentlessly on catching criminals of all kinds, serious and less serious together.
So all your
That is the
predecessors
right.
got it wrong then?
I didn't say that. That is the right approach, and it will mean more criminals get caught. It'll mean the public get safer. But in fairness to my various predecessors, under successive Conservative Home Secretaries, crime measured by the Crime Survey did consistently fall.
But your leader, when she was with us a couple of weeks ago, and in her speeches and when she was running for leader, she did say you have to work out what went wrong. So I wonder what you think went wrong. Rather than talking about when you were there for 2 years and you say lots of good things happen, what do you think went wrong? What did Conservative Home Secretaries get wrong during their time in office?
So the one thing that I challenged the police with, because I think it needed to improve, was the fact that not enough crimes were being solved. It was as simple as that, right? Not enough crimes were being solved, and I set in place a plan to fix that.
Our viewers will have seen the dispute in the last few days between the Telegraph journalist Alison Pearson and Essex Police about a tweet. Now, we are not going to resolve that argument here, but it has put a focus
I think
on
you
what
mean
are
a
called
post on X,
non-crime
the Everything app.
True. Stop dead naming.
hate incidents. Now, in normal plain speak, that's an abusive act that doesn't necessarily meet a threshold for prosecution. But your party brought in the concept of recording these incidents. Was that a mistake?
Well, one of the things I did
wasn't
in
a
government
non-crime
just
hate
recently was
incident.
actually
Yeah.
significant.
She was being investigated for criminal activity, or alleged criminal activity,
Yeah.
potential criminal activity.
Tighten the thresholds for these non-crime hate incidents because I was very concerned about them. And I'm rather concerned to see that Yvette Cooper, the new Home Secretary, is now looking at undoing the changes that I made as police minister
But
just
was
a few
it a
months
mistake
ago.
to bring in this concept at all? If, as you say, you wanted more crimes to be solved, why introduce a concept where the police spend time investigating and looking at things that aren't a crime?
Well, that is partly what I was referring to a minute or two ago when I said the police had been distracted. So
So
we've
was
seen
it a
cases.
mistake?
I think it was a mistake, yes, for the police to look at things like there's a different journalist, a different Telegraph journalist who was spoken to by the police about commenting on trans issues. We've seen 9-year-olds in schools being spoken to, and yes, that was wrong. It should not have happened.
But
that was a mistake. The police shouldn't have done
But
it.
was it a mistake to introduce this concept? It was a concept introduced and legislated for by your Conservative government. Was it a mistake to introduce this idea at all?
Yeah, so I think it needs to be significantly recalibrated.
Why is this a
So I think the police should
conversation?
concentrate.
Fucking hell.
Again, they're not doing journalism anymore because they don't have to.
Yeah.
On investigating crimes. The only time I think it's justified to look at behaviour that falls below the criminal threshold is where there is a real and immediate danger of criminality subsequently occurring. Now, that is a very high threshold.
So what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean if someone's behaving in a way that suggests they might be about to commit a crime, I think that is something the police should pay attention to. But things like a Telegraph journalist, a different journalist, not Alison Pearson, a different one, commenting on trans issues, for example, or 9-year-olds in playgrounds, both of whom have been caught by this non-crime hate incident net. That is wrong.
Is it?
And
Do you think he's doing that, or is it Kemi Badenoch when mentioning the transes?
Oh no, I think they're all obsessed at this point. But do you see what he's trying to do there? He goes, well, there's also there's a 9-year-old that's been contacted about this and some trans issues. Like, is he trying to equate the idea that a 9-year-old having this shit? I think they called someone the arsler, and I'm just like, whatever, who gives a shit? But they're saying, well, that's ridiculous. Also, what's ridiculous is Telegraph people commenting on trans people. Fucking the media narrative in this country is what is creating the situation, is creating the atmosphere that leads to things like Brown Ajayi getting fucking slashed multiple times, right?
Yep.
It is the blood that is soaking the print media of this country. They will continue to be soaked with it as they incite more and more of this hatred against trans people, right? And it should be recorded. They should be recorded for hate crimes. They should be recorded for inciting anti-trans hatred, as far as I'm concerned. But that is unfortunately not a crime.
Quite so.
rules I think should be changed. Now, I started to change them a few months ago to lift those thresholds. I'm very concerned that Yvette Cooper may be planning to scrap the changes that I introduced.
But here you were speaking in the Commons in February. You said where things do not meet the criminal threshold but might still be useful in pursuing a criminal investigation later, they will still be recorded.
Yeah.
Now that's a bit different to what you're saying today.
I don't think it is. No, I don't think it is.
Well, forgive me. You just said it should only be used when a crime might be about to be committed.
And that's what I meant by my words in February.
So that's
that is what I meant in
February. So can you give us an example?
But that's literally not what you said in February. So, like, learn to speak would be my advice.
Of that, just so people can understand
Or
what you
stop
mean.
lying.
When should the police record this kind of non-crime hate-related incident? Because we want to get away from the jargon.
Yeah.
Exactly what do you mean about what is a good use of police time when it's not a crime?
Well, I think if somebody is, for example, appears to be about to threaten violence, or they're expressing, views that are, exceptionally either racist or misogynistic, that might suggest that could lead very imminently to a crime being committed, then I think we would want the police to keep an eye on that. But the majority, probably 90%. Of these non-crime hate incidents that are being looked at don't meet that much
90%.
higher. Well, I'm speculating, but a large proportion. I've given you some examples already. The police should not be policing free speech. The police should not be policing thought. They should be concentrating on actual crime or behaviour that is just below the criminal threshold and might realistically and imminently lead to a crime. We want them to focus on those crimes, as I was saying earlier, not be policing thought.
And just briefly, we've talked a lot about social care this morning. To your knowledge, have the Conservatives been approached by the government in a cross-party way to start talking about social care in England?
Not to my knowledge personally, but I'm the Shadow Home Secretary, not the Shadow Health Secretary. Look, of course, we'll always try and be constructive on issues of national importance like this. We did have a plan based on the Dilnot report. And in fact, we were about to start piloting a new approach that would have capped care costs for families, but Labour have unfortunately scrapped that pilot. Labour had in the past, as I think you said, talked about a national care plan or national care service. Apparently that's now disappeared, and the Labour Party now appear to have no plan whatsoever. And given they've had some time in opposition to develop a plan, that is very, very disappointing. And in fact, all they've done really is slap this national insurance tax on the care sector, which will make it even more difficult for the care sector to operate.
OK, well, we will see what happens. Chris Philp, Shadow Home Secretary, it's great to have you with us in the studio, and you're in your job. I'm sure we'll see you again soon. Thanks so much indeed. Now then, we've talked about Ukraine already today, more strikes overnight in the capital, and you might have been deafened by all the megaphone diplomacy.
You may notice that neither of us have anything to say about Mr. Philp's contribution. I think that speaks volumes.
He's a liar.
He's a liar and an absolutely pointless human being.
Jeremy Hunt from Timo, very true.
Yeah.
Diplomacy on what's going on. Yesterday, President Zelensky said he thought the war would end. Now, President Trump is heading back to the White House, but the violence goes on. We can show you some pictures.
Also, he didn't say he thought it would end. He said he thought it would end sooner, which is slightly different, but okay.
Yeah.
Here
are we bothered about
safety?
Them telling us what we already know, that everything's shit?
Not really. Not really.
I'm not bothered either.
Like, it's an important issue, but I don't know that they're gonna do it justice.
I'm not sure how much we can transform this content. Let's be real.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, but yeah, basically, and it's midnight, so
it is quite late.
I'm going the fuck to bed.
Definitely. Let's have a look. Who do we have?
Adrian Vixen.
Yeah, I'm absolutely down for going into them. Yeah, absolutely.
Go and say hello to Adrian Vixen, who
and there's no one live on YouTube at all.
Well, nor fool them.
I'm gonna send you off into Al Jazeera because there's no one else to go to.
Terrorists, Jesus, what are you doing?
I'm sending people right into the arms of the Qatari government, Kevin.
Terrorism.
It's treason. Basically treason.
Basically, yes. Now, if you were accepting money from petrostates, that would be different. That's fine and totally allowed.
Or using them to funnel money to actual terrorist organisations like our allies in Israel have done.
Yeah, but again, we wouldn't do that because that's bad.
Absolutely.
That's bad and naughty. Anyway, right. Everyone go and say hello to Adrian Vixen and stay amazing. I'll be back tomorrow with Christy, I think.
Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow as well on Malone's and on with Todd. Everyone go follow KF Logan 1875 over on Twitch.
Everyone go and follow No Judges MTG on all of the platforms.
Stay safe and
Free Palestine.
free Palestine. Goodbye.
Bye.